In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. If any member has reason to believe this meeting is being held in violation of this act, they should state so at this time. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, we're going to conduct roll call. I just want to note for the record that Ms. Keenan is absent, so you have Justin Riggs, Deputy City Manager, as the acting Board Secretary for this evening. Ms. Werner.
Here.
Mr. Venuto.
Here.
Mr. Ledwin.
Here.
Ms. Notch is absent. Ms. Sheehan.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mr. Zechter.
Here.
Mr. Bodner.
Here.
Ms. Stevenson.
Here.
Thank you.
We welcome Sarah Stevenson, and we'll have her oath of office.
Okay, Ms. Stevenson, I can try to do this the easy way. I'm just going to read it, and then you're going to give your assent if you're inclined. I, Sarah Stevenson, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of New Jersey, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and in this state under the authority of the people, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of the office of Zoning Board Adjustment Member according to the best of my ability, and that I will not use my office to grant preferential treatment nor to seek personal gain, favor, or advantage not available to the general public. Do you so swear or affirm?
I do.
All right, great, thank you. And I will correct our form. I see the form at the bottom says person taking oath has the option of including "so help me God" if he so desires. And I'll
Oh,
make sure
thank
that
you.
is changed so that it is gender neutral. Thank you. Congratulations and good luck, and thank you for serving.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes of August 22nd meeting.
I make the motion?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Sheehan, seconded by Mr. Ledwin.
Okay, roll call. Mr. Ledwin.
Yes.
Ms. Sheehan.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Abstain?
And please correct me if I'm saying it wrong. Go ahead.
Zexer, you're doing fine.
Zexer, okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Bodner.
Yes.
Mr. Venuto.
Yes.
Ms. Warner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, we have a resolution for Donna and John Dougherty, 211 Grant Street. Can we have that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Venuto, seconded by Ms. Stevenson. I'm sorry, by Ms. Sheehan. Sorry.
Thank you. Roll call. Mr. Ledwin.
Yes.
Ms. Sheehan.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Abstain?
Mr. Zexer.
Yes.
Mr. Bodner.
Yes.
Mr. Venuto.
Yes.
Ms. Warner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the resolution for James and Carol Ramo, 266 Grant Street. Can we have that motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Zetzer, seconded by Mr. Walsh.
Roll call. Mr. Ledwin.
Yes.
Ms. Sheehan.
Abstain?
Mr. Walsh.
Abstain?
Mr. Zexer.
Yes.
Mr. Bodner.
Yes.
Mr. Venuto.
Yes.
Ms. Werner.
Abstain.
Thank you.
Okay, our first application tonight is Timothy Little, 925 Benton Avenue. Do you introduce yourselves?
Yes, hi, good evening.
I'm Timothy Little. My wife and I are the owners of the property at 925 Benton Avenue. This is Jason Neal, my architect.
Okay, Mr. Neal, could you turn your microphone on, please?
Okay, I'm going to swear both of you in. Please raise your right hand. Also swear in our board engineer. Do each of you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. So the genesis of our project is we bought the home in 2021. At the time, our inspection indicated we need a new roof. The windows are quite old. I still have the single plank vinyl siding, and the deck needs to be replaced. So we wanted to do it in an integrated project that keeps with the character of the house as a beach cottage. So we've submitted our application. The only nonconformities we are seeking are to continue existing nonconformities, which are the front yard setback, the Queen Street setback, and the lot size.
Okay. If you don't have any other testimony, could we have Craig's report? Or,
Shouldn't he testify on the variances?
okay, all
Well,
right.
I mean, as I understood the testimony so far, there aren't any. So I don't know, I need a little help.
So,
These all existing nonconformities?
no,
Yeah, so,
they're modifying the front porch. So this is an existing corner lot on Queen Street as well as Benton Avenue. The front porch along, let me make sure I get this right, along Benton Avenue is being modified. And if you take a look at sheet A1.1, I don't know whether you guys.
Craig, can we,
Tell-
Craig, before you present their application for them, which I know you're about to do out of kindness, you really should present their own application. Can you have your architect tell us what you're building?
Certainly.
And why it should be, get a variance?
So we have a home that is.
Not to cut you off, but can you just move the mics closer and everyone can just make sure they speak into it, just so we can get the. audio.
How about now? Is that
Perfect,
good?
thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Mic check. Okay, so
Are you a licensed architect?
I am a licensed
Where are you
architect.
licensed?
New Jersey, Washington, Virginia, Maryland,
Since when?
2012.
All right.
I should also probably state for the record that in addition to being a homeowner, I am a licensed attorney in New Jersey.
Okay.
I also have a
You
home.
can question your own witness, go ahead.
I also have a home here that I designed and that is off Claghorn and been through this process before, but also familiarized myself with a lot of the specifics of what this project has through that process, which we tried to.
All right, I just want to accept you as a, I want to see if we accept you as an expert first, since you're going to give expert testimony, okay? So you've given your credentials. Madam Chair, do you accept him as an expert architect?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So with this particular project, we have a beach cottage from about the 1950s, okay? It has been renovated and retrofitted numerous times over the past 60, 70 years. We have a lot of vinyl plastic pieces that have replaced the original wood pieces in it. We have a canvas awning that was added on to the structure at one time. We have a porch that is bisected, a wraparound porch that, well, if we want to make it a wraparound porch, we have two porches currently, that one is at the Benson side, and the other is in the rear on the property line. So really connecting the two. The homeowner is looking to invest a large amount of capital in improving this building in the sense of taking off a lot of older materials that do not shed the water like they are supposed to. So there's mold infiltration in certain areas that we want to undertake the remediation and start to provide the breathability, the level of the material characteristics to provide the resistance of what is needed in a coastal area. So We are looking at really resilient materials that tie in with the local character, pulling from historical precedents as well, from older sea cottages with proportions, materiality, some of the detailing in the railing, windows, doors, et cetera. We're looking for resiliency in the materials themselves, so like we're looking at cedar shake. We are looking to provide a rain screen cavity so that cedar shake will also hopefully be there for 100 years. A metal roof, a thick gauge metal roof on the porch area. All that water is going to also be shed away from the building, eliminating a lot of the infiltration that they were having, moisture infiltration. And then positioning it, most of the water we'd like to see shed into the rain garden to eliminate any storm water that goes out into the street. So that's what we're showing in the rear, along the rear lot, on the north rear lot. And then, you know, this is a whole, like, facelift on the entire building. Every aspect about it will be
Talk about the
touched.
variances that you need?
Sure, so on the front yard setback, the existing setback is 2.8 feet, which is not in conformance with the requirements. As renovated, it will still be 2.8 feet. So we're not exacerbating that. We also need a variance on lot size. You can read that, I probably can't.
Well, I'd like to back up to, we do have a lot, that line that we are encroaching on the Queen Street side,
Yes.
that's where the porch area is going to encroach towards, okay? So with that in mind, there's also the clear sight triangle that has been shown in sheet A1.3 that is indicating that we are also modifying that corner to make sure that there is no obstruction from the intersection as well. So that encroachment, yes, it is getting closer to the street front on that particular side with the already existing nonconformity, but we are looking to address all the major concerns as far as what that building would
We're also
obstruct.
looking to mitigate that by turning the stairs that are on the Queen side so they don't go straight out towards the sidewalk, as they go alongside the side of the house.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. Yeah, we've also tried to pull back some actual built elements that already encroached into that existing setback as well.
Quick question?
Certainly.
9-foot setback, is that these stairs that are coming down onto Queen? Is the 9-foot setback to the stairs or to
No, the 9-foot setback is to the deck.
the deck? So the stairs encroach even more?
No, the stairs have been turned.
Yeah, but there's still a small little.
Oh, yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So what is the number for,
I'm sorry, that is the 9-foot. Right? Yeah, that is the 9-foot.
The 9-foot to the stairs?
To the stairs, that's correct. My apologies.
Is it safe to say, so on the Queen Street side, when I look at your survey, it looks like there is a modest porch if you're looking at it from Queen Street on the right side of the building. You now are proposing a expanded deck along that frontage.
Correct.
Okay. So that expanded deck is what's triggering the new variances. Okay? Just want to make sure that that's clear. Now, on the Benton Avenue side, there's an existing deck and a stair along there, pretty much oriented, excuse me, oriented in the same direction that your proposed covered porch and stair are.
Correct.
Okay. That setback is going to remain the same, however, that portion of the covered porch is being reconfigured. That is what's triggering the front yard setback along Benton Avenue. Okay? I just want to make sure that we're clear. Those are the two variances that relate to the renovations that are proposed for the structure. The lot size variance is because they're proposing an addition to an existing undersized lot It exists that way, it's 5,323 square foot. The requirement in that district is 6,250 square feet. So that's something that really can't do much about. There's improved lots on both sides of them. But I just want to make sure that we grasp the variances.
Correct.
Okay. Do you have a purpose of zoning you want to say is being advanced?
One, we think that the renovated house it's much more beneficial to the neighborhood. It's in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, using better materials and more sustainable materials, better drainage. We've already spent a fair amount of money on drainage improvements because we had a real ponding effect when we bought the home. And I would argue there's some level of hardship in that we're doing a very substantial renovation that's necessary because the roof is basically done, the siding is basically done. This canvas awning is done with pipes, and then you know what the ocean does to pipes. So I don't even know how I would replace that otherwise. And we're just trying to do a sensible renovation here. We're not adding a square foot to the home of the living space where.
Undesirable visual improvement and better drainage.
Right.
If they are actually.
And we're actually also going to advance that goal too, we're ripping up a perfectly good concrete driveway, and we're going to put pavers in there to increase permeability there.
I just have some questions about
Certainly.
the setbacks. It said your rear yard setback is 36 feet? Is that looking at Benton Avenue and the rear is behind the house, looking from Benton? Because
Yeah,
it
so,
seems like it's pretty close to the neighbors. I don't know where 36 feet comes from.
well, 36 is coming from the Benton side would be the west side of the property line so it's over, like you're jumping the garage and then coming to the house from that property line?
Actually, it says 25 feet here on the zoning table, where our existing is 8 foot, and our as renovated will be 8 foot.
Well, I'm reading your chart, the first page, where it says rear yard setback, 36 feet, 0.6. I'm just trying to figure out
Okay,
where that's
yep.
coming
Well,
from.
all right, just so that no one gets confused, you please use Craig's chart, if you could.
That says 33.
Because that's what's going to get put into the resolution, so let's just go off of Craig's chart and then ask questions based on that. I'm not saying you're wrong in what you're reading, I just want to make sure that if they get an
It says-
approval, it's going to look like Craig's chart, so let's make sure that's what they're
So
building.
they're saying,
I
okay,
think,
so
I think they are correct in 36 foot 8 inches. That's what I'm looking at right now.
I'm just asking where this is, what's the rear yard? I'm just asking.
So the rear yard is measured along Benton Avenue. It does not include the detached garage. So.
Oh, it doesn't?
Does not. Detached garages have their own setbacks.
Okay.
So there's a different set of setbacks
That's
for
what I was
those. So
trying to figure.
that's where I was trying to help you. I was going to get to explain that, but, so it skips through, like that measurement is taken struck through the garage. They do have it dimensioned on sheet
So that,
A1.1.
then it's Queen Street. I'm just trying to figure out what is the front of the house and what's the back of the house.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the
The
house.
ordinance allows you to choose when picking your side and rear yard.
So which one is it today?
So what they're choosing is the rear yard is the yard that's containing the existing garage.
Okay, that's what I want to know, okay.
And then the side yard is the one, if you're looking from Queen Street at the front of the house, it's on the right side of the house and shares the common property line with Lot 11.
And they said, what's that setback there?
And that one shows on their plan 8 foot 4 inches on the side yard.
That's Queen, that's.
That's the side.
That's the long property. I think that the 11-foot 5 off of Benton might be the one, or Queen. The 11-foot 5 off Queen might be the dimension we're looking for.
None of
That's the
those numbers are
setback
on this
off
chart.
of
No,
that.
those are front yards.
Is that what you're asking, off what's considered the front, and then how far off that street is,
So
so that I
the
understand
front
the
yard will
question?
be Queen Street.
That's the way I
We
understand
have
it.
two,
Okay.
we have two fronts.
Okay,
This is a corner lot.
okay, well, I didn't, yeah.
The corner lot, we have two front yard setbacks, one from Benton, one from Queen. They both have to be at least 20 feet.
They both have to be the same, they don't have to
They're
pick. they don't-
existing nonconformity, and so anything any improvements that they're proposing within that 20 feet are triggering the variances.
Okay.
Okay, so that's your two front yard variances. The side and rear, the applicant gets to choose. The ordinance doesn't
Okay.
dictate that, but in
So the
this lot, it's
side-
pretty clear.
So the side yard, if the front is queen, the side yard will be to the right. Are you expanding that deck out?
No,
No.
No.
no, it stays where it is.
But you are expanding, which would be the rear,
Yeah,
towards the garage. You're expanding that one out.
slightly, yes, with the porch area, yes, and the front, which is facing Queen. Or, yes, facing Queen
Okay.
is the front, yeah.
Their
Thank you.
survey calls out a setback existing at 45.9 feet to the rear of the building. So that, and they're now showing it at 36 foot 8 inches. So obviously, it's being expanded back towards the rear of the lot. But it conforms, and that does not trigger any variance.
Okay. I was just confused on what was the rear.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, this is one of those that has the recipe for disaster. I just need someone to look at this chart, because this chart that the engineer picks, that the engineer prepares, I copy and paste into the resolution. And that's what you can build. It doesn't matter what your plans say, it doesn't matter what you testify to. This chart goes into the resolution, that's what you can build. So I need you to take the moment and look at this chart and make sure the dimensions that are on this chart are what you intend to build. Because you just said numbers that don't, I heard 11 foot, and there's no 11 foot anywhere on this document.
There's 11.5.
Okay,
That's,
Well, no, he wants you to look at the chart
that's fine.
I'm just
on the
saying
first
11.5
first
isn't
page
on-
of
11.5
Mr.
isn't on this
Hurlis's
chart.
letter.
At least not that I see, maybe it is somewhere, I just don't see it. The one change we've made on there is rear yard. Craig had 33 feet. I think I scratched it out, I can't read it anymore, and I made it 36.8 feet. Is that what we decided their plan says? That's the one.
The rear yard is proposed at 36 foot 8 inches.
36 foot 8 inches.
So I have 33. I believe that's incorrect. It's 36 foot 8 inches.
We're working off of his chart right now.
Let's make sure we get the front yard setbacks, because you were initially deemed incomplete because of the inconsistencies between the survey and your plans. You have a dimension on sheet A1.1 at 11 foot 5 inches measured to your roof line. Okay? Now, on the right side, closest to the side yard that we just talked about, that projects, that your addition, your deck addition projects out further than the 11 foot 5 inches, and I have that calculated at 9 foot 1 inches. Is that correct?
Craig, where are you getting 9'1" from?
Where am I getting 9.1?
Yeah.
So look at your, if we look at your dimension that runs along Benton Avenue, measured from Queen Street, the first dimension is 11 foot 5 inches.
Yeah.
That's the only dimension you've given me for a front yard setback off of Queen Street. That 65 square foot addition projects.
We have 1'6" in between that and that 1'6" that
Okay,
adds to,
but that's not the critical dimension that I'm talking
that
about.
goes to the porch, which other
That goes to
dimension?
your porch.
Yeah, what other
Now,
dimension?
look at this 65 square foot addition above that on your plan.
Yeah,
Okay, that projects out forward of that 1 foot 6 inch line. So my math
oh, that was.
is
it had it
9
foot
foot
1
1 inch. I
from
want to make
that
sure,
point
that that's correct, because your variance is going to be for 9 foot 1 inch. And if that's not correct, you're going to be coming back here.
7'6", 9'1", 2 feet out, yeah, that's fine,
Okay?
that's fine.
All right. Right, okay. I must have, I'm looking at older plans. Okay, got it. Gotcha.
Yep.
I think.
It will be
I think we're on
9'1".
the same page.
Yep, all right, perfect. All right, so that's, so
It's
the
9'1".
the setback on Queen Street is
From the
9 foot
stair.
1 inches, and that is your front yard setback to the nearest face of that deck structure.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
There are other encroachments, but that's the closest it comes. And then the Benton Avenue is 2 foot 8 inches. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
Okay, so those are the two variances.
You don't include the steps?
So we have a new ordinance that allows stair projections into the front yard, so long as they're, I think,
2 feet.
5 foot wide or less, and they can project into that front yard.
I think
There's no
2 feet,
variance-
right?
There's no variance to that.
That's right, 2 feet, I think, and they can do, 5 feet wide, 2 feet?
No, they can project more than that, but, so this meets the new ordinance.
Okay.
And that's why we're not measuring to those steps.
Okay. I have a second question, or another question. So this whole addition deck will have a roof over it?
With the exception of the pergola that's off the rear side, which is the building on Queen, which would be the side, or the rear yard setback, excuse me. On Queen Street, there's the rear deck would be a pergola. That shows up in the rendering. I don't know if you have A3.4. You can see that closely where the transition happens.
And this, Craig, this is all considered lot coverage because of the roof going over top of it?
Yeah, they've calculated the lot coverage, I checked it. So that's one of our checks and balances to see whether they're overdeveloping the lot. They're proposing a lot coverage of 44%, where 45% is the maximum permitted. And you'll note that the floor area ratio is also 0.32, where 0.4 is permitted, so they're. Sure. All right. So you heard testimony from the applicant, what they're proposing to do. This is a project that's located in the R3A Medium Density Residential District. I already talked about the variances, but just to rehash that, it's an existing non-conforming lot with regards to lot size. 6,250 square feet is the minimum permit required. 5,323 square foot exists. The building setback line for Benton Avenue is measured to the proposed improvements at 2 foot 8 inches setback where 20 foot is required. It also has a front yard on Queen Street. 20-foot setback is required. 9 foot 1 inch is proposed. So those are the two variances. All of the other bulk and area standards are met. I'll roll right into our general review comments since we talked about the variances already. So item 1 is our standard condition that that the new construction has to conform with Chapter 258, which is our flood damage protection code. Item number 2, we've asked that the cover sheet of the plans are revised to provide the space for the signatures of the board professionals and chairman and secretary. Item 3, they did provide a grading and drainage plan. We did want to see some additional grading information on there, so we were asking for a revised grading and drainage plan be required and approved by the zoning board engineer. And item number 4 is our standard condition that they have to comply with Chapter 525, the minimum stormwater management and grading requirements, and that's during and after construction. That applies. Item number 5 is we evaluate the sidewalk after construction and make sure that nothing is damaged. So the applicant is required to replace the sidewalk to the satisfaction of the board engineer. Item number 6 is our standard condition that requires them to post an inspection escrow fee and ties the certificate of occupancy to the acceptance of those improvements. 7 is our recommendation that they comply with the requirements of the Shade Tree Commission, Fire Department, and Public Works Department. We did receive reports from the Fire Department dated 6/24/24, and they recommended approval with no comments. Public Works recommended approval dated 6/21/24 with no comments, and the Shade Tree Commission recommended approval with the following condition, and that was dated June 27, 2024. And the condition was, no trees impacted by the project. If the garage improvements are to be made, a construction barrier should be installed around the tree adjacent to the garage. So I'm going to ask the applicants, are there any proposed garage improvements?
The garage is being re-sided, so we will be putting up a,
But there's no excavation or anything like that that would damage the tree roots or
no,
anything
but
like that?
we'll put up a barrier anyway.
Okay, so we.
We love the tree.
shade tree is, the shade tree is asking you to protect that tree. Okay, number 8, comply with any and all state, county, and local approvals. 9 is the project is not located within the historic district, so HPC approval is not required. 10 is the condition that they have to comply with any and all applicable affordable housing requirements. And 11 is, should the board grant approval, the applicant is required to revise the plans to address any conditions the board sets, and the applicant is required to submit the requisite number of sets to the board engineer for review and approval. And that's a summary of my report. I'm happy to answer any questions the board has.
Just an observation, Rich, for your resolution. If you look at the drawings, they redid their drawings on June 19th, which then takes into effect that 9.1 setback. So the original drawings,
I apologize. I was using an older set because it was in color and it was easier to see. Sorry.
I don't know.
so the A1.1 drawing was revised on June 19th. So it does fit with Craig's 9.1.
No, I didn't change Craig's plan.
No, no,
The
I'm just-
testimony was that it was 11 feet. That was the problem.
I know, but I'm just saying that
But the new plan.
the new plans, the drawings have been revised.
Well, right now, the chart, I think we've got the chart.
Is correct.
Yep.
Thank you. Yep. Well, the 36 foot 8 inches is changed from the 33.
Right.
Other than that, we're all set. That's what you're building. Thank you.
I'd like to open it up to anyone within 200 feet of the property if you wish to speak. Anyone beyond 200 feet? And seeing none, closed to the public.
Unless there's discussion, the motion I recommend being made, but how you vote is up to you, is a motion to grant the variances for building setback on Benton and Queen, and as set forth in the, and also the lot size, which is the existing nonconformity, as set forth on page 2 of the engineer's report, subject to the conditions 1 through 11 on the engineer's report. And the motion should be made in the positive, but how you vote is up to you.
Craig, can I just have one real quick? This is not in the historic district, correct?
According to my review, no, he's not.
Okay, just confirming, that's all.
Okay, would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Venuto, seconded by Ms. Sheehan.
Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Ledwin,
Yes.
Ms. Sheehan,
Yes?
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Zexer,
Yes.
Mr. Bodnar,
Yes.
Mr. Venuto,
Yes.
Ms. Werner.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, good luck with your project.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Our next application will be Michael Wood, 413 Broadway. Sure.
This is our chair.
To the drawings. Good evening, board members. My name is Chris Valenson. I represent Mike Wood and Grana, BYOB, which is the restaurant on, at 413 Broadway in West Perry on the corner. In the R2 zone, it's identified as Lot 1 in Block 1032. It's a mixed-use building. It's in the R2 zone. It's a mixed-use building. It's an existing restaurant with an apartment above, and therefore it is not permitted in the R2 zone. There is some modifications taking place with respect to the building that we need to get approved this evening. We'd like to get approved this evening in order to get a CO from some improvements that this board allowed last year to tidy up the building, to put a fire access stair on the outside, a new fire door on the outside, and some other improvements. That work, when underway, necessitated from the building department and the fire department a complete fire suppression system throughout the entire building, restaurant and upstairs. So the difficulty with that is to put a sprinkler system in an existing building is difficult because it's an old building and you've got to kind of wiggle it in somewhere. It turns out that the base of the system, and Mike's going to tell you this better than I can, the base of the system is fairly large set of pipes, and they need to be in an area that has HVAC, that has heat.
Why don't you let him tell us so it's actual testimony?
I will. I'm just giving you the entree.
We'll do it twice.
The room has to be heated. Therefore, we have to enclose an area that is exposed now. That's where the use variance comes in. Since the building's not permitted, enclosing that room where the piping is going to be technically it is an expansion, although there's no real expansion of the footprint or anything like that. We're just putting walls up where none now exist on a deck between an upper level deck and a lower level deck, enclosing that. It's there now, it's just being enclosed, not for seating, it's not for restaurant people, it's not for a kitchen, it is for the heat, to provide heat to that system, and it's used for storage now, and that's going to be no change. Mike Wood, if you would, and I'm not going to ask you a million questions, you just tell the board how we got here today and why we're here, based upon your understanding, but you need to be sworn in first. Joe, you can get sworn in also, so we don't have to do it again.
Who is everyone that's testifying? What's your name?
Michael Wood, owner.
He's the principal.
Okay, and your name, sir?
Joseph Corter, architect.
Say your last name?
Corter, C-O-U-R-T-E-R, Corter,
That's familiar. Good.
yes.
All right, do each of you, our engineer remains under oath. Do each of you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Well, Mike, I'll start you out. Mike, we were here last year to do some improvements to the restaurant that you own.
Yes.
And during the course of those renovations, we ran into a hiccup, which requires us to be here. Would you tell the board what happened?
Yeah, it was during the process when we were waiting for the permit to be approved for the changes that the zoning board approved last year. The zoning officer required, the permit officer required that we do a commercial sprinkler system, a fire suppression system, to bring it up to code currently. None existed previously. It was an old building, so these are 4-inch pipes that are going throughout the building, and these are sprinklers that are both in the apartment and the restaurant in case there was a fire. There's a main water valve that comes in from the street. So it was tricky to figure out where we can put these pipes so that the fire department can access it. They need like a turn-off, an on-off, if they had to come out in case there was a fire to shut off the system. And so that needs to be accessible from the outside. We had no way to put these pipes down near the floor of the restaurant without removing several tables. It would have taken up quite a bit of space in the actual footprint. So the solution that we came up with was to run these pipes straight out into this covered porch, which currently does not have exterior walls. It's covered on the top by the deck above it. So
on the side of the building, Mike, there's an at-grade deck
at grade,
with a deck above.
yes,
And on the outside, what constitutes walls now is some lattice.
correct.
And some nothing.
Yes,
Some's open and some lattice.
one side of this covered porch is the building itself. And then there's a lot of lattice work currently that hides a portion of that covered porch.
And Mike, that's off Broadway, the side of the building that fronts Broadway?
Correct.
And on the Mr. Corder's plan where it's It's shown in pink here. That's the area we're talking about.
Yes.
And board members, I just gave you a packet of pictures, which Mr. King, we can mark as one exhibit. It's covered by a letter, which I'll explain. And there are 6 pictures attached. Mike, if you would, from using the photographs, the pictures, try to correlate those to the area we're talking about and explain to the board what's going on.
So this picture that I'm looking at now, this is,
The first picture?
yes, this is the storage space right here in this area, in this larger area. There's a very unsightly freezer. A restaurant at this size needs a lot of storage that they don't have because of the size of the restaurant. So this is the main storage space for the restaurant. They have this chest freezer, and where you don't see in the picture, there's a refrigerator in with a blower, an HVAC blower.
Going through those, let's go through those pictures, and you can show them the fire suppression system and stuff.
Yes, so the next picture is another view of the freezer. You see there's another freezer to the left, and it appears to be a wall straight ahead. That's just screening. It's like window screening. It's not actually enclosed. And in there's another refrigerator, and there's the blower for the air conditioning. The next picture, this is a view from Broadway, and you could see this is the smaller area right here, where the actual shut-off will be for the fire department.
That's the box shut off the fire department requires.
Yes, it's a big pipe with a circular area that they can turn off the water.
That shuts off the fire suppression system when they come to fight a fire. so
Yes.
They're not getting rained on.
Yes, we also spoke to the, I guess it's the fire inspector, and he would also like the Knox box to be in there for the fire department to come out. That's the easiest place for them to access the key to get into the building.
It's called Knox,
KNOX.
like Fort, okay.
Yeah, and
Picture, next one.
this is just another view of the storage under the porch. The next picture, that's the actual piping that the fire department needs to access.
Now, ordinarily, if you were building a new building and had this as explained to you, this could be incorporated into the building and have its own area, et cetera, but it's always in an area that has heat,
Yes.
temperature control.
Yeah, the pipes would freeze in the winter. The final picture there is another view. And you could see, this is not space that would ever be used for seating in a restaurant. This is,
Mike, that's all an area that is now, that area in pink here on the quarter plan.
correct.
And that has some screening or lattice walls, and some has no walls.
Yes, correct.
What was the intention for the exterior of that, had this not come up? That was just going to remain?
It would have remained as it was, yes.
Now it's going to have finished exterior walls. It'll obviously look a whole lot nicer.
It will look a lot nicer. You won't be able to see the storage.
And everything you just described from the photographs is within that area,
Correct.
and nothing for this. There's no intention to use it for seating, there's no intention to use it for anything else but the suppression system and the storage as it's used now.
Correct.
And there's no expansion of the building footprint.
Correct.
There's no additional customer areas or anything of that nature.
That's correct.
There's nothing upstairs being expanded. Everything else remains the same. You're just finishing off that open space with walls.
Yes.
And this is what they asked you to do? This is the suppression system?
Fairly substantial
And these are
system for the whole
And these are
entire-
the walls going up?
Yes.
Yes. It was a very expensive system.
So to enclose that room requires us to be here and ask for the variance that we're requesting. It's a 5-vote variance, which Mr. Porter, now I'm going to ask him a couple questions. Unless anybody has any questions for Mr. Wood, I can jump to Mr. Porter and.
Can I just ask a broad generalization question? So when you came to us the first time for site plan approval, this was an outdoor storage area, correct?
Correct.
On the
I'm sorry,
plan
Mike.
shown as an outdoor storage area.
Yes.
Okay, so the enclosure of this, you're going to heat it, obviously, so the pipes don't freeze. It's going to remain a storage area.
Correct.
Okay, I just want the record to be clear with that.
But now that it becomes heated, though, that becomes part of FAR, correct?
I think it was before.
So floor area ratio is not considered for commercial parts. And this looks to me like commercial storage area. So I didn't think that it increased the floor area ratio here. Now, the residential units above, we counted up all the floor area ratio, and I remember we having a detailed conversation with regards to that. There were bunk rooms and et cetera.
That did bump up slightly
Yeah.
previously.
So they got a variance the last time when they came in for the floor area ratio, for the increase in floor area ratio. My opinion is this is not habitable space, it's not used for, occupation. I believe this more relates to the commercial business downstairs. We don't count floor area ratio for commercial business,
Okay.
okay?
I also have one quick question. Where are the stairs located? Because I
This-
thought this is where the stairs were.
The stairs to the apartment?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on the outside, so if you drive away, come back, the stairs, they were existing stairs that were rebuilt.
Okay, so they're,
go up. So they're not actually, the stairs are, in the very first picture, you could see them.
oh, I see them. Okay.
And Mike, what's attached to cover the photographs is a letter from the fire suppression systems installator, fabricator, saying that this is the natural place, or the most obvious place for the system to go.
Yes. And if you've been in the restaurant, you could see we had to get very creative with hiding these pipes. We had to do a coffered-type drop ceiling. It looks very nice, but that was all due to this piping that was required.
Is that current piping there that was there before that, in this room?
There was no,
There's no piping at all?
I think you see
No.
2 pipes in one of the photographs running the other way.
Yeah.
I believe that's plumbing for upstairs, possibly. I'm not positive.
what picture?
The first,
Those lines. Those lines might actually feed the system, I'm not sure.
I think they're, I'm not an expert, but that looks to me like the gas lines, the natural gas lines.
they look PVC, so I don't think PVC can be gas.
I
In the third picture,
I was looking at the first.
it looks PVC. So it might be sewer.
But those lines were there, Mike,
Correct,
always been there?
yes.
And they didn't require any type of insulation or heat or anything like that?
No.
I'm going to ask Mr. Porter a couple questions. Mr. Porter.
I have a question for you. You said you came before us to get permission to enclose that facility. It has lattice work, et cetera, on it now.
That's what we're asking for now.
A different area I think he's talking to.
The fact of the matter is, it is enclosed.
It-
So how did that,
Different areas, I think. We didn't come before the board to get this enclosed. We're coming before to get this enclosed now. There was a different area of the building enclosed last time. The screen porch upstairs, I believe.
There was a screen
No,
porch upstairs.
downstairs is enclosed?
The lattice was not, it's not, you can't heat a
I
lattice.
understand that. But
We-
my question is, why didn't you come before the board before you did the work?
We didn't know we needed the fire suppression system until after the permit was about to be issued.
So you're saying the construction office issued the permit?
Conditioned upon doing the system.
Yeah.
It's not a relevant,
Joe-
it's not a relevant.
They've already
zoning
approved the,
Mr.
consideration.
Porter, the architect, can tell you that.
I just don't want to spend a lot of time on that. We're not going to punish them if they did it at that time, but we're not going to give it to them just because they did it already. So it's just not a relevant zoning consideration.
Everything has been done in accordance with what the construction officials have told us to do. There's no red stickers or no deep, we didn't do anything wrong. They told us to do it, they told Mike to do it, and he's doing it. And Joe can touch on that a little bit. Mr. Porter, you're the architect for the project,
Yes,
and you prepared the plans that have been submitted to the board,
yes, I did.
and you were here before the board for the original approval that we got last year.
Yes,
Okay. And it was not anticipated that any work would be done on this part of the structure at that time, is that right?
correct.
And at that time and now, some of it has some lattice work as exterior walls, and some has nothing as exterior walls, correct?
Correct.
And the purpose of this application is to now enclose that with with rated walls or actual walls that can accommodate heating system and HVAC.
Correct. Yes, absolutely.
And that's all that's proposed.
Yes. And our idea is to make these walls attractive as looking like the other parts of the building.
So now
And
on
so it would
Broadway.
fit in.
You know, on Broadway now, you'll have a view of the building that is consistent with the rest of the building and not open storage and freezers. and
Right, yes.
Yeah. So is it going to have heating in it, or is it just going to be insulated?
No, heating, yeah.
We're going to use the current system, just punch a new hole in it.
Okay, so right now it's not heated.
Correct. But the blower for the heater is in that room.
Okay.
But that room will now be thermostated.
Yes.
It'll be part
And
of it.
it'll have a vent coming off the blower.
It'll have a heat vent,
Yeah.
which the contractor and the manufacturer mandate.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Corder, do you think then, one of the assets and attributes of this application is that the building will look much nicer from an aesthetic standpoint from Broadway?
Definitely,
And
definitely.
tell us what you're going to do with those walls that are going to add that look to it.
Well,
What's proposed for the wall, exterior walls?
It's going to mimic exactly what the building is like now, the horizontal cedar. Yeah,
So everything will be coordinated and consistent throughout the building?
yes,
And obviously, with the fire suppression system being put into the building, that helps prevent harm to property, to people from a fire.
correct, yes.
Do you think that the variance that we're requesting, the D variance, can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good?
Good. Oh, definitely, definitely. I think it will increase the appearance of the building
And the safety?
and the safety too, sure.
And in light of the fact that, from a bulk standpoint, setbacks, coverage, there's nothing being added, is that right?
Correct, the footprint stays exactly the same.
Do you therefore think that the variance can be granted without substantial impact on the zoning plan and the zoning ordinance?
Definitely.
Now, do you think, from a special reason standpoint, that the site, the lot, can continue to accommodate the restaurant and the mixed-use building that's there if the board should allow us to enclose this room? Do you think the site can accommodate? Do you think there's any greater impact on the site because of what we're doing?
Well, it's going to make everything look better after we've done this project.
So you do think then that the site, the lot, size of the lot can accommodate the building even after what we do is done?
Sure.
Members of the board, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
I have a question. Does this require HPC approval?
We already have it.
It's already approved.
Okay.
It was submitted with the packet.
The last time, yes.
Well, this is a change, though, because,
So they will have to,
They approved already.
okay.
that's why I was, okay. So you went to before the HPC again?
We didn't have to. It was one of the expedited approvals. They just, with the letter, they approved it. This wasn't deemed a major
Okay.
change.
I just have a question for Rich. Rich, how can the construction office give approval over the zoning board? Because what if we say no to this?
Then you got to tear it down.
But I guess the construction office said, yes, go ahead and go do it?
I don't know what the construction office did. I mean, I don't know. But I mean, I can certainly imagine a circumstance where they realize that they have to have a fire suppression system for safety of people, and then they realize, wait a minute, it'll freeze if we don't close it in. So they tell them, close it in and go to the board and get it approved. Probably what happened, and that makes perfect sense to me.
But I guess they could have put it in the restaurant, but they chose not to because they would lose seating. Correct? Is that why?
It would have been possible, but we would have lost a lot of the restaurant, yes.
Well,
It wouldn't have
need
made it,
approval for that, too.
I'm sorry?
we would have needed
They
approval, yeah.
they wouldn't need approval for that if they went inside the restaurant.
It's just unsightly. It's not, it's just not.
But I'm just asking why you require
Machine,
approval.
maybe the construction office made an error and let them build it before they came to us, but they have to have some discretion on fire suppression systems that make sense, and
Well, and we're not saying that they couldn't put the suppression system in. It was they chose not to take away their
I guess they
seating.
could have tore apart the restaurant and missed the summer and put the pipes in the middle of the dining room and not.
Well, Rich, now you're being silly.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, I don't know what you want me to say.
I'm going after the fact that
They
they're
should not-
coming
okay,
for,
For the record, one should not do exterior construction without approval from the building inspector. And if it requires a variance, They should not issue a building permit until they get approval from the zoning board. That's the rule.
Okay.
Someone may have broken the rule, I don't know. I have no idea. But that is, you are correctly stating the rule.
Okay.
Well,
My-
and Rich, that's my point.
I know, but that's just, it's sort of like not our job.
Well,
Like, I get it, but I
Yeah.
don't want to get our record be all muddied by what they did or didn't do with the zoning, with the construction official. The construction official isn't even here testifying. And even if they did build it, if they said to us, guys, give us the variance because we already built it and it'll be really a pain if you make us take it down, I would say that's irrelevant. That's not our problem. If we don't approve it, you take it down. And I tell the board, don't give them approval just because they built it. Likewise, if they built it, I'm telling you, don't punish them for having built it. That's not what zoning boards do. So we're just assuming that they're coming in and asking for permission to do what they're doing.
But understand that only the suppression system has been put in, the walls aren't there, the building is unchanged. The fire suppression system is installed. The walls aren't there yet. They wouldn't let.
But that's what I'm confused at.
no, the backside of the walls are there.
No, the new walls are
No, he
not.
said the testimony on the record is that it's
Pictures were
lattice.
There were a couple pieces of plywood that were put up.
Yeah,
The pictures are from today that you're looking at.
I understand, but I went and looked at it today.
I understand that, but the walls that we're talking about. that
There were
show-
a few pieces of plywood.
You're right.
yes. Yes.
I just want to tell everyone, if you vote no because it is already built, it is reversible error. Okay, I'm just telling everybody that now. So if you want to vote no, that's absolutely within your discretion. But articulate your reasons and give reasons that are zoning-based and based on the purposes of zoning. Because if you don't give a reason, particularly now that we've had this discussion, or if you give a reason that it's already there, it will be reversible error. This requires 5 out of 7 votes, so we can't toy around with any votes. So I'm just telling everyone, and I've given this instruction a number of times, Machine, your questions about the process are perfectly legitimate questions. I'm not the one to ask, okay? That is an enforcement issue and a building department issue. I do zoning board. So yes, someone, if they need a variance, they should not do the construction until they have a variance, right? But there are some exceptions to that for public safety, health, and welfare, and a fire suppression system may be one of them. So it may be possible they put up some plywood so they could keep the temperature in control there. When they built this, I have no idea, but don't say no because of that. If you say no, articulate a reason other than that, as long as it's legitimate.
Thank you.
I just have-
I want the record to be clear that the construction of the walls, the framing of the walls, that has not been done. We're not here asking for an after-the-fact approval. The only thing that has been done is the installation of the fire suppression system. It is sitting exposed, but for some plywood that the contractor put up.
It may have been put up to
Probably
fix the
probably
pipes or
protected it.
something.
The block, it's brand-new installation, expensive. Maybe he put it up to screen it, I don't know. But the structural part of the work, the architectural part of the work, that hasn't been done. That still needs to be done. And the construction department made that very clear, that we are not allowed to do that, and that wasn't done. We had to come here first. That's why we were able to take the pictures of the exposed system that you saw in your packet today. They were taken today, this afternoon. I don't want anybody to think that this is a done project, and we're here asking for after-the-fact approval. That is not the case. The only thing that's in is the system.
Even if it were, it
I-
was
I know the law.
our voting and our decision-making.
We agree on the law.
I have a question about, they keep saying mixed use. Is it mixed use if it's a residential property on top of the restaurant?
Yes, that's why they're saying mixed use.
Okay, I thought it was only if it was an
Rest-
apartment for rental purposes. that you-
Restaurant with apartments over in a R2 residential zone where neither one of those uses are permitted.
Okay, because I thought we gave approval for homeowner and restaurant, not actually a rental and a restaurant.
The form of ownership doesn't matter, so it's apartment, is it one unit? If
It is a one-unit
one
apartment.
unit, it's one unit
Okay.
over the restaurant, and that's what we granted approval for.
Okay,
And we're
I
not
just was-
changing
'cause
anything there.
I'm just asking, because we had other places where it becomes a dual use, and I'm asking if this was, because all of a sudden it's becoming mixed use, and I don't think we were using that word mixed use before, when it was a residential property and we gave that variance.
No, so they secure, and they're asking for tonight expansion of a non-conforming use. The non-conforming use being the restaurant on the ground floor with the apartment over.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
so they're expanding the commercial part of it because I believe that this, is on the first floor, relates to the commercial part of it, and that area is used for storage for the restaurant.
And believe the testimony, you were here last year, the testimony was, that apartment has not been rented to date.
Okay.
And I believe it was going to be used for family or maybe employees, but there's been no decision about renting it to date. It's empty.
Does the suppression system go to the upstairs also?
Yeah, the whole building.
The whole building?
Let's have Craig's report.
Okay, I'm going to summarize my June 25th, 2024 review memorandum. There's new board members here, but just for the sake of this, this is rehashed, the site plan application that we granted approval for as part of Resolution 07-27-2023. So a lot of the board members are familiar with this. I'm not going to go through it exhaustively. Under the completeness review, there was one issue that I asked them to provide pictures of the fire suppression system in the room. They've given that to you tonight. That's been addressed. All of these other completeness items and checklist items were all waivers that they requested at the time of site plan approval and that we granted. There's no changes. I don't think we need any of those. I support waivers from all of those items. With regards to the zoning requirements, I believe there's two variances that are necessary for these improvements. The first is because it's a non-conforming use, and it's in the residential R2 zone, and if you're familiar with West Perry Street, the Cape May side of West Perry Street has a pattern of existing commercial establishments that are along West Perry Street. This is one of them. So any expansion of that use in the R2 district that only permits single-family dwellings as a permitted use constitutes an expansion of a non-conforming use. So the enclosure of this creates more habitable space, or not habitable space, more enclosed space for the restaurant, and therefore that represents expansion of a non-conforming use. Now, the enclosure of that area triggers a building setback line variance on Broadway.
Understood.
So the nearest face of that enclosed portion to be enclosed is 9.6 feet, where 25 foot is required. So there's a front yard setback, building setback for that enclosure. Okay? So do you agree those are the two variances?
It's existing, and because it's being enclosed, it requires that setback.
Okay, so those are the two. On page 5 of 7, I did illustrate all of the other variances that were granted as part of the resolution. I'm not going to go through those, but those are informational for the board's purposes, if they need to look at those or see what we did in the past. And I'm just going to roll right into my general review comments on page 6 of 7. The first three are really pertinent to this. The developer must conform to Chapter 258, the flood damage protection code for the new construction. Obviously, you have new construction here for the enclosure. And two, and I asked a question earlier, and I just wanted to make sure the record was clear, that there's no habitable space should be permitted in the new enclosed space.
And that's a condition that's
it's
incorporated in the resolutions.
Right, it's only going to be for storage and for enclosing that fire suppression system. There's no additional seating, there's nothing triggering parking, anything like that. It's not intended for human occupancy.
Agreed.
Correct.
Okay. And then I just asked that the zoning table reflect all of the necessary variances for this. And then the last thing, all of the other conditions that I've set forth on page 7 are all part of the conditions that were set forth in Resolution 07-27-2023, and I recommend that they continue along with this site plan and variance application, should the board grant approval, unless the board seeks to modify that in some way.
And those conditions are all accepted.
So that's my quick version of that. I'll circle back if anyone has any questions. But we considered most of this on the first go-around for the site plan and variance application. Okay? Thank you.
I'd like to open it up to anyone within 200 feet of the property. Anyone beyond 200 feet. Closed to the public.
Unless there's further discussion, the motion that I recommend being made, how you vote is up to you, is a motion to grant variances on page 5 of the engineer's report, numbers 1 and 2, the use variance for expansion of a non-conforming use and the building setback line on Broadway. This is an expansion of a non-conforming use, albeit a fairly small one. They're basically heating in an area that was closed in with lattice, that was previously storage and is now fire safety, but they are expanding the use, I guess. It was storage, now it is storage, so the use really isn't expanding all that much, but it's a new closed-in area, so it's, in the most technical sense, an expansion of a non-conforming use. And it is also a building setback line on Broadway because they're closing in an area, but they're not expanding the footprint. Those are the two variances. Because it is a use variance, they must show, they do not need to show, site suitability or the typical special reasons. They need to show that the site can accommodate the enclosure of this space. So it's a little bit of a lesser standard, but it does require 5 of 7 votes. So when you make the motion, please understand that if they need 5 affirmative votes in order to succeed. That's subject to the conditions outlined by the board engineer, including number 2, which is very important, that this is not to be, we're calling a habitable space. I just don't want to get tripped up on that. Anything you heat, we consider habitable. We've done that, we've said that before on this record, and I want to say that again. So when this says no habitable space, I think this should read better, it is for storage only, and not for use by patrons of the hotel. Do you understand that?
Restaurant, yes.
Okay, so that's important. So that's the motion I'd recommend being made, but how you vote is up to you.
I make the motion?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Sheehan,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Setzer.
Thank you. Roll call. Mr. Ledwin?
Yes.
Ms. Sheehan?
Yes?
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Sexter?
Yes.
Mr. Bodnar?
Yes.
Mr. Venuto?
Yes.
Ms. Werner?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
The back. Jesus. We just doing pictures.
Yeah.
Our next application is for Oceanfront Properties LLC, 1045 Beach Avenue.
All right, there's a plan that we're going to mark Exhibit B from the last application? Quarters architect plan, okay.
Thank you.
Was that different than anything that was submitted? Okay.
Good to go.
Good evening.
Evening, Madam Chairman. Board members, John Amenhauser, the DeWeese Law Firm, here this evening on behalf of the applicant, Oceanfront Properties, LLC. Subject property for this application is 1045 Beach Avenue. It's block 1101, lots 7, 8, and 9. It's located in the C3 Hotel Motel Zoning District, and it operates as the Grand Hotel for anyone familiar with the site. Prior to tonight's meeting, recommendations for approval were received by the City of Cape May Police Department, City of Cape May Public Works. We also received conceptual approval from the city's Historic Preservation Commission on July 15th. And there was an additional recommendation with conditions from the Shade Tree Commissions, which we'll go over tonight during our presentation. But what is proposed and submitted through our application is that the applicant seeking to construct a new outdoor lounge area for use by hotel guests only. The lounge area will include seating for guests as well as 2 fire pits, a new flagpole, an ADA-compliant ramp to the swimming pool area. Flagpole that exists will continue to exist. And then a timber retaining wall is proposed to enclose this area. In addition to that, there are new additional parking spaces that were proposed, which will be discussed by Mr. Blackman during his testimony. And what we're seeking is both preliminary and final site plan approval, as well as a D2 expansion of non-conforming use variance and a number of bulk variances related to the property, some of which are existing nonconformities. Here with me tonight is Mr. Jerry Blackman. Jerry's a registered architect and professional planner, licensed here in New Jersey. I know he's been before the board before, but I'm happy to elicit credentials if necessary. And additionally, I have Mr. Robert Belanson. Mr. Belanson is a member of Oceanfront Properties LLC, who is the applicant and owner of this property. I don't intend to elicit testimony from Mr. Belanson, but I wanted him to be here and sworn in the event that there's questions from the board for him to answer tonight. So with that, if we can have my professional sworn, please.
Will you each, I guess we'll swear both of you in. Mr. Hurlis remains under oath. Do each of you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do. Jerry, if you can you just start to give the board just a general overview of the site as it exists now?
Yep. The site has frontage on 3 streets, Beach Avenue, Philadelphia, and New Jersey Avenues. It's located in the C3 Hotel Motel District. The site is currently developed with a hotel. The hotel has various uses associated with it. There's an outdoor swimming pool, there's an indoor swimming pool, there's some banquet rooms, there's the Hemingway's restaurant, there's some meeting conference rooms and the like. What we are proposing to add to those uses is this outdoor seating area adjacent to the outdoor swimming pool. It's on the south side of the existing outdoor swimming pool. As Mr. Amundsen, or Amundhauser, I'm trying to remember how to pronounce it, had indicated, the seating area is provided for the convenience of the guests only. It's not open to the general public at large. You couldn't just walk up from the beach and sit there. It's for the guests only. There is parking on site. There's a total of 166 guest rooms in the hotel currently. There are 166 parking spaces existing on site currently. We are adding 2 parking spaces adjacent to the proposed seating area at roughly the southern portion of the site. The site is largely covered by building or paving. The existing lot coverage is 83.8%, and we're increasing it by 1.4%, if I remember correctly, up to a proposed 85.2%, which is non-conforming. The zoning district only permits 75% lot coverage, but we feel that we're adding a de minimis amount.
I have a correction.
Okay.
I knew you were going to give me. So, under the existing lot coverage in my table on page 3 of 7, I have 75% indicated. It's actually 83.8%.
Existing.
Existing. And proposed is 85.2%.
I just didn't want the,
What?
no, that's fine. I just didn't want them to go through and
No, I-
everybody to think that they were increasing by 9%, 10%.
Is the seating area currently existing there?
83.8%.
Is the seating area currently existing?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
It has been constructed, yes. It's not being used. It's been roped off, does not have an occupancy certificate.
When was it constructed?
Well, so if I can, I'll ask Mr. Belanson here. Bob, can you talk to the board a little bit about when that area was constructed?
It was spring of '22.
And before the seats were added, what was that area made up of?
Well, let's put it this way. In 1997, when we purchased the hotel, that area was covered with AstroTurf. It had seats and chairs and 2 gas barbecue grills. And it was a mess. So at the time, we simply got rid of the AstroTurf and tables, got rid of the barbecue grills, and topped the area off with stones. And it remained like that until 2 years ago.
Now, prior to putting the seats that we see there now out in that area, had those seats existed in the pool area just next door or adjacent to this proposed?
Yes, correct.
So you didn't add new tables or anything, you moved them from where the pool area was to the new proposed lounge area?
Correct. If anything, we put more lounge chairs in the place of where the tables came from.
And based on the condition of that area when you purchased the property, did you think that you would have been allowed to just put those chairs there at that point in time?
Yes.
Okay. And after doing so, were you made aware that that wasn't permitted by the city zoning official?
Yes.
Since that time, and I'm going to hand it, actually, I should hand this out now, Rich, if I can. if I can mark this as A1, it's just a one-page photograph of the lounge area that's out there, just so everyone can see that. So while that's being passed around, Mr. Belanson, there's, what you can see in that picture is that there are two roped-off areas, which would be an area where you have two steps to enter, and then on the other side as well. Has it been roped off since you were made aware that you can't utilize it without approval from this board?
Yes,
So nobody, no guests or third parties, nobody has used it?
absolutely not.
Just to provide a little clarity as to how we got to this.
Can you explain how this is going to be used if this is approved? Like, what is proposed there? Is there going to be events there? Is there going to be table service there, waitress service,
So-
bar service, anything like
I can
that?
talk.
So what we want to use it for is, again, for guests to be able to bring their food and drink down instead of having it in the indoor pool, or I'm sorry, in the outdoor pool area, to utilize that space for that.
But Bob, there's no waitress service proposed in this
No,
area, correct?
correct.
Okay, but you'll allow someone to order something inside and bring it there?
Sure,
Right now,
absolutely.
they do that in the pool area, but.
Correct. Or they can bring their coolers over, or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
Why is there a stair going down into the parking lot?
Well, it's for access.
Correct.
By whom, though? I thought it was for guests only.
It is. So
Is that,
that's a center island. That pool and that lounge area is all a center island. All the rooms are around it in a U.
can you get from Beach Avenue to that?
Oh, most certainly you could, yes. Yes. But in terms of that, we've indicated that it's going to be used for hotel guests only, correct?
Absolutely.
Do you have staff on site to monitor who's in that area?
Yes,
Okay. And you'll monitor to ensure that it's only being utilized by hotel guests?
correct.
And how do you do that?
Bar can't come in there?
Only if they're hotel guests. So no patrons from the bar can't
For
just
dinner,
come
they
out.
just can't take a cocktail out there?
Correct.
I mean, how would you monitor it? I mean,
He's testified.
no, but he just said he was going to, but, I mean, what are the staff going to do? Go up and say, what's your room? I mean, I'm asking, what's the process to monitor the people access to the place?
When anybody comes into the outdoor pool area, we require them to show their wristband.
Okay, but you can get from the parking lots, you don't have to go through the pool.
That's for staff to get through for cleaning, et cetera, yes.
But the pool is immediately
No,
next to
no,
it.
right here. You don't need to go through the pool area, so there's no one showing a wristband.
So the blue chairs that are right behind it are the pool area. So it's not as if these are completely walled off. They are right next to each other. So anyone that's in that pool area can monitor that as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
I think you might go a long way helping yourself if you just testify that you put in some kind of system that makes it, this is like,
Well, okay. Got a system.
we all live here, you know what I mean? Like, the guests are drinking, they're having a good time over at the thing, and then they wander in, they hang out in there, you're gonna throw them out? So, I mean, I think everybody's looking for something to show that it's like connected to the pool, or it's there's a lock and a car is required to go in there, or something to make it not a wander off Beach Avenue and hang out at this spot. I mean, that seems like what I'm getting the feel from the gang. That might be a little helpful to your application. Is there something we can do to help you there? You can help us help you.
Well, sure, that can be closed off.
I have a question.
Sure.
Could you help me? I went and saw the site today. There's still AstroTurf on that site,
There is.
right? Help me understand, how did we get to where we are tonight without coming before this board prior to it?
So that's what I believe, Mr. Blanson. If you'd like to rehash that, how is it that you thought you were able to install what is there now and what's shown in that photograph without
Because
being?
this is all new construction, right?
Well, that is,
Well, when you say construction,
Well, the barrier wall, et
the
cetera,
timber, correct.
that's all new.
Yes, it is. And we thought that was landscaping, part of the landscaping that we have out front of the hotel.
correct.
Were new gas lines installed?
No,
So they're just original gas lines?
that's correct.
And I'll note the AstroTurf that is there, when we went before the HPC as part of the conceptual approval, which I think everyone's seen, but they did require, obviously, that we take that out and that be replaced with pavers. So the revised plans submitted do show that. So that must absolutely come out, and it will. Just so that's
Okay.
clear.
My question then, for lot coverage, were you calculating it versus turf or versus the pavers?
The calculation was as if it were concrete, no matter if it were turf or pavers.
We weren't providing a credit of any kind.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
There's no credit permitted in the commercial zone.
Oh, okay.
Can we go back, because we had a little crosstalk, and I just want to give you the benefit of it if you're doing it. Are you agreeing, if you do get approved, that you'll block off what appears to be a public entrance and design it in a way that there's a gate that only requires a card for patrons to go in, or you can only get there through the pool, or something that makes it not an entrance 30 feet, 20 feet off of Beach Avenue next to a bar?
Absolutely, that's not a problem.
When you have, since the gas lines were already there, I guess there's no inspection required to put in,
That's not a zoning, that's not a zoning issue.
well, I'm just trying to think as if it was,
I'm not even sure that I can answer that. I don't know that we know the answer to that at this point. We haven't utilized them.
No.
okay. I guess my question was, I'm looking at public safety, and that's what a lot of things we look at as zoning, don't we, at public safety?
There may be a way to shoehorn it in there. Go ahead, you can ask whatever you want to ask. Whether a fire inspection is required for the reinstallation of a fire pit is, to me, not a zoning question. No one on this board is trained to understand if the answer we get is true or not.
I guess my question was, if we approve it, does it get inspected?
It would need to be inspected.
Okay.
Currently, it doesn't have an occupancy permit.
Okay.
So, assume, I don't want to assume, but if this board, did grant us approval of the use and the variances that were proposed, then the next step would be is that with the construction office, the proper building permit application form has to be prepared, whatever the permit fee is, paid. And then, yes, construction is mostly complete. We still have to put the pavers in, the subbase and the pavers that is proposed as part of this application. Once that is completed, then the construction office is going to have to do an inspection of all of the work, not just the pavers, and issue an occupancy permit if they find that there are no violations. If there are violations that they note, they'd have to be corrected before occupancy permit could be issued.
So, Jerry, moving on, so there's, through our application and Mr. Hurlis's review letter, there were 6 variances that were identified as needing to be granted in order for this application to proceed forward to development. You had a chance to review those variances in the letter, correct?
I did, yes.
Okay, and you agree with those being necessary here?
Yes, I do agree with the variances that were listed in Mr. Hurlis's letter are necessary for this board to consider this application.
Now, the first variance that was highlighted involves exceeding the maximum permitted percentage of total square footage for accessory uses at the property, right? Given that we were already in excess of that allowable 25% figure, this is a D2 variance, right? So,
correct.
Given that, is it your professional opinion that the site can accommodate this additional accessory use and that the area that's proposed for it is suitable on the property?
Yes, yeah, the reason that we are here seeking a use variance is due to the amount of accessory uses that are on the site. The development before this seating area was built and proposed, however you want to consider it. Those accessory uses far exceeded the 25% that's permitted for the parcel. What we are adding, as far as this seating area, we feel it's a de minimis increase to, what was already exceeding the 25% permitted. With the proposed seating area, we're up to 43.1%. The seating area adding, I think it was like 1 or 1.5%, if I remember correctly. But that being said, we're not materially modifying the use of the pre-existing facility. It's currently a hotel, which is a permitted use. The seating area is a use that already exists on site. We are expanding that, yes, and that's the reason that we need a variance. We're not adding enclosed space. We're not adding density. We feel that, this amount of 1,569 square feet of seating area, the site can certainly accommodate the proposed use, especially since it's a convenience for the guests only. and I'd asked Bob before the meeting whether or not the swimming pool was open once the sun goes down. The reply was no, it closes at dusk. So it does provide, another possibility for seating once, the swimming pool's no longer in use.
Is there any lighting proposed for that area?
There is. Our application does show a lighting plan. They're, for lack of a better word, they're pole-mounted lights. There's a series of them that are proposed, or that are installed around the perimeter of the timber piles that surround the seating area. Yep. Yeah, those lights are new. There is also flagpole light, which is existing, and that's going to remain, but we don't view that as really contributing to the lighting of that area. It's primarily those perimeter lighting fixtures that are mounted on the timbers currently that provides lighting for that area.
Does the pool stay open after dark?
No, it
Closes
does
at
not.
dusk.
What was in this area before you did this?
Okay, so once again, back to 97, there was AstroTurf in this exact area. There was AstroTurf with tables and chairs, only a few plastic ones, and 2 barbecue grills. So in 1998, spring of 98, we tore that out and just retopped the area with red stones. We just simply didn't have the time or the money, frankly, to be playing with that area. We had bigger fish to fry at the hotel, and we didn't look at it again until, again, a couple years ago.
Yeah, we felt that that outdoor seating is desired by the guests, that we should provide opportunities for that to happen on site. There aren't a lot of other areas on the site that you can provide that amenity. Naturally, there are some rooms that have balconies, but not all. There are some areas of the building that can access a roof deck above the Hemingway's restaurant and the lobby, but not all of them easily. When you look at the ground level, it's really the swimming pool in this area that's south of the swimming pool. And we're not proposing it's a low-intensity use that we're proposing. In essence, the seating that was around the pool in a more condensed version is being expanded to occupy a larger area on the site, just immediately adjacent to the pool.
So up to a couple years ago, this was redstone
Correct.
with nothing
Yes.
but redstone. And
Yep.
when did that change? What happened a couple years ago?
So what was
Something put there?
what was the impetus for you to make this change?
Well, I honestly, I think we just looked at the area and said, why don't we put the tables over here so that they're out of the pool area, and it's just space that wasn't being utilized. It's, the way we looked at it, it's part of the outdoor pool. It always was part of the outdoor pool. Up until 2 years ago when we put the new fence in, there was a gate in the center of the old fence with a 2-step wooden step coming from the outdoor pool to that area. So it was always part of the outdoor pool area. We simply re-landscaped it and improved it.
So 2 years ago, you put chairs and things in there?
Correct, yes.
But not like this?
No, exactly like that.
Exactly.
Yes,
It's essentially set up as it was
This has been
intended,
like this for 2 years?
walled off without use.
correct.
Yep.
Can I ask a question? You're proposing 2 parking spots?
Yes,
Are they already done?
yes, they are.
And where were they added?
They were added at this 1,569 square foot seating area. There's 1 parking space that was added just immediately to the east and 1 just immediately to the west. I could show you on the site plan
Yes.
if you'd like.
Okay. Was this already blacktopped, or did you add blacktop for these 2 spots?
No, it was already paved.
Okay, and was there a reason why they weren't being used as parking spots before?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay, I just was,
Yep, yeah, so this is the seating area here.
Can you just bring that mic with you, if you don't mind? Thank you.
Okay, this rectangular area is the seating area. That's the subject of our application. This is Beach Avenue at the bottom of the sheet. So there's 1 parking space that's added here, and there's 1 parking space that's added here. It's just immediately behind the landscaped area, and there is a little like brick garden wall that's there as well on each side. Right here, and then those timbers that begin to expand, or that begin to enclose that seating area, pick up at the, sort of the east and west ends of those brick garden walls and extend over towards the seating area.
Now, is that what requires the setback to the new parking spots? Is that
Yes.
requires a variance for?
Yes,
the
a
two new
5-foot
parking
buffer
spots?
is required. We only have 4 feet.
So the 2 new parking spots that you're putting in requires a variance also, right?
Well, yes, in a way. Yeah, the buffer is the variance that's being, that's required. We are already, for the proposed uses on the site, we're already deficient in quantity of parking spaces, but we're actually lessening that nonconformity by adding these 2 parking spaces. There's a total of 235 parking spaces that the ordinance would require on site. We have 166 existing. We're increasing that to 168. So while we already are nonconforming in quantity of parking, we're bettering that nonconformity. But the buffer is only 4 feet where 5 is required to the parking space.
Jerry, if I
Necessitates a
can,
variance.
I'm sorry, excuse me, if I can add, and I think the best way to look at this is where we're looking for this variance, there are already cars parked along Hemingway's. I don't believe this protrudes any further out than the cars already parked in front of Hemingway's. I'm sure
It does not.
it's less, yes.
Yeah.
So Jerry, you just went over the D2, the first variance. So the additional 5 variances that were included in Mr. Hurlis's letter are for building setback to the accessory outdoor lounge, lot coverage, which you went over, and then the 3 parking setbacks.
Yes.
Can you go over them, and for the benefit of the board, can you provide your professional opinion as to whether or not there's purposes of zoning advance that they were to be granted?
Yep. Just to make sure that the board is clear on what the nature of the variances are that are being requested. The use is due to the accessory use exceeding 25% of all total uses on the site. The building setback to this proposed seating area, we're proposing, 14.58 feet? 16.58 feet from the property line along Beach Avenue to the beginning of the seating area, whereas 20 feet is required in the ordinance for a front yard. So that's one of the variances that we're asking for. Lot coverage is, the maximum permitted is 75%. The proposed uses or lot coverage on the site is 85.2, which is a slight increase of 1.4% over what's existing. The parking setbacks are the distance to, the distance from the property line along Beach Avenue. There are other parking spaces that are on site that are pre-existing that also don't conform to the parking setback. Like the front yard requirement to the seating area, the distance from the property line along Beach Avenue to your first parking spaces, requirement's 20 feet, and we have 4. The existing parking spaces before any of this development started were already less than 20 feet. I believe they were 14 or 15 feet from the Beach Avenue property line. Quantity of parking spaces, 235 parking spaces are required by the ordinance on site. Pre-existing is 166, which we're increasing by 2 to 168. And then parking buffer is the distance from the Beach Avenue property line to the first parking space, where 5 feet is required. We have 4 feet that is being proposed.
So Jerry, what
Yep.
particular purposes of zoning do you believe would be advanced that these variances that we're requesting were to be granted by the board?
In our opinion, the purposes that are advanced are promoting a desirable visual environment. As Mr. Belanson had testified to, what the uses were previously on the site before this seating area was sort of built. It was an area that was underutilized. It wasn't particularly attractive. We are proposing to, in our opinion, make it more attractive, by adding pavers and additional landscaping and, decorative lighting fixtures and nice furniture and fire pits and so forth and so on. We feel that it's a better use of the full property as well, that You do have an outdoor swimming pool, and, previous condition was, lounge chairs and people on tables and chairs and so forth sort of shoved around the pool. By utilizing an underutilized part of the site where not many other areas for seating or recreation really exist, we feel that we're creating a better use of the land, the total use of the land for the facility.
And Jerry, in addition to the positives, do you see any potential detriment to the public good or the zone plan if the board were to grant our requested relief?
I do not. I think that the effect on impervious coverage is de minimis. I feel like the accessory use is already proposed on site. This is in conjunction with, the proposed uses. While it does technically expand that nonconformity of use, it's a de minimis amount that it increases it. And it's not of a different nature than the uses that are already present on site.
I know that Mr. Hurlis is going to review his letter, but if we can, I know there was one point in the letter, and based on the approvals we received from the various departments within the city, can you talk about the Shade Tree Commission gave us a recommendation of approval with conditions? And you recall seeing that. Can you go over that a little bit and discuss that with the board? I think it's something we wanted to bring up because what they were recommending was potentially placing some trees in this area. And Jerry wanted to highlight why he doesn't believe this particular area is quite suitable for that.
Yeah,
So we can go over that a bit.
We did receive a letter of review from the Shade Tree Commission of this particular application. They were recommending, I guess, either deciduous or evergreen trees be added. There wasn't a lot of detail, I guess, in their request. It doesn't indicate exactly where. We're assuming that it's the landscaped area just immediately south to the seating area, but it doesn't indicate that. Doesn't indicate how many trees or what type or how big or spacing or anything along those lines, or caliper or species. It really was just, I guess, a request for consideration. There is, if anybody had seen the site or remembers, there is a business sign already located in this landscaped area that we're assuming, but we don't know for sure, that the Shade Tree Commission is recommending trees be placed. Trees are going to begin to obstruct that business sign, and anything of decent height is going to begin to block the views of hotel guests, that have hotel rooms sort of, more to the north of the pool, towards the beach, any appreciable trees. While the landscaped area just to the south of the seating area is, already pretty well planted. I mean, there's a number of flowers there. There's a number of shrubs and grasses and things that we think provide effective screening of the seating area in the outdoor pool from the Beach Avenue right-of-way. We think the introduction of trees, if they are recommending anything of any decent height, it just doesn't seem to really suit. We also looked at other properties along Beach Avenue, and while some of the single-family residential properties do have, street trees in what I'll call the front yard, when you look at the hotel motels along Beach Avenue, they're low plantings. They're flowers and shrubs. There's no real appreciable trees, deciduous or evergreen. So I guess we would ask that the board, consider that we think that actually introduction of trees in that seating area are going to be detrimental to the use of the hotel.
Did you reach out to the Shade Tree and ask for clarification?
I just received those fairly recently from Ms. Keenan.
So you never reached out and see what they were actually looking for?
No, we've not.
Okay.
Jerry, that noted, in talking to the applicant,
Yep.
in regard to that recommendation,
Yep.
did we come up with a potential viable alternative to talk to Shade Tree about and for the board to consider as well regarding plantings?
Yes, if it was this board's, desire for us to reach out to Shade Tree, we do have some proposed areas that are, not in this southern area, landscaped area immediately adjacent to the seating area, that are currently just stone that we would plant. We wouldn't feel that tall, either deciduous or evergreen trees would be suitable. There are areas that are not that wide. They happen to be between parking spaces and the building itself. as you look at the frontages along Philadelphia Avenue and New Jersey Avenue. Or actually, I
Why
don't think
wouldn't you
there's
do
any.
that to mitigate your lot coverage variance? Anyway, totally separate and apart from that issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if the Shade Tree Commission, if their objective is to create what appears to be a greener site on the property, we feel that the seating, or the landscaped area in front of the seating area already is green and well landscaped. If they're just desiring for us to get more plantings on the site, we feel that there are other areas that might be more appropriate, they're not currently paved. They're open. It's just that there's gravel there. There's decks that overhang. They are up about 20 feet or so above grade. But, these areas are not that wide, and with the deck above, I think, maybe shrubs and that sort of thing might be more appropriate, but it's speculation as to what the Shade Tree Commission might be looking for specifically on the site. But we'd be willing to open a dialogue with them and find out a little more specifically what their desires might be.
And obviously, we'd be more than happy to do that as a condition, of course, and I'm sure that you'd make it as such.
Whenever we have a lot coverage variance, I always, look for an opportunity to try and reduce that, mitigate that, and then you're telling me that there's areas that we can do that, so, that should, I'm recommending that to the board to make that a condition of approval, that we should do that. The buffering of that outdoor seating area now is a little different issue to me. All of the justifications that you gave for not buffering that or not landscaping that were really self-centered about your views from your facility. You're proposing this area within a front yard setback, so you're now pushing that into a front yard area where it's not permitted. It should be buffered, and I'll leave it up to the board to weigh whether the existing buffering is adequate or not. But, if your views are obstructed, you're the one that wants this here, and that's too bad. That's kind of how I feel. Like, if you need to buffer this for noise mitigation, light mitigation, there could be a lot of activity on this. Do you want to preserve the streetscape, or maybe it's appropriate? You guys decide. But I'm just offering that the justification for that really didn't make sense to me. It's supposed to benefit the community, not their views. Just a way of looking at it, so.
Can you talk a little more, Jerry, about the buffering? I know we talked that there's some plantings there, but what type of plantings are already proposed in that area?
That landscaped area is slightly elevated above grade. There's a brick wall that surrounds it. I think it's about 2 feet above grade, more or less. I'm not positive that that's correct, but it's on the order of 2 feet. There is some grass that's in there, not artificial turf, actual real grass. There's some areas with mulch that has flowers, and sort of as a backdrop to the grass and the flowers, there's taller shrubs. The shrubs are up to a height of 3 feet, 3.5 feet, something on the order of that. So if you were on the sidewalk along Beach Avenue, or even if you were across the street of Beach Avenue, it's difficult to see the swimming pool or the seating area because of the height of the planter is raised and the shrubs that are there. If I don't know what the Shade Tree Commission's, I guess, motivations were, other than to provide trees. If it was to screen from Beach Avenue more of the pool, we think we do have effective plantings for doing that already that are low. If they're looking for it to be supplemented with more plantings, certainly possible. But their letter didn't provide a lot of guidance as to what specifically they were looking for.
But in terms of your professional opinion, you believe that there is particularly a suitable amount of buffering that exists now?
I believe that there is, yes.
That said, though, I know we've indicated, as a condition of approval, we will work with Shade Tree Commission to figure out exactly what they're looking for and work that out with them, right?
That's correct. We would be willing to engage in discussion with Shade Tree Commission and find out more specifically what their requests are.
I have a question. You're talking about that the plants are like 3 feet high. There's 2 fire pits there now. Are you planning any more fire pits, or just the 2 that are there?
Just the two.
Just 2. And what are the height of those fire pits? Because they're kind of raised.
They are, yes. I believe they're at 42 inches off of the level of the, well, what the level of the pavers will be. The current turf surface, I think it's 42 inches high. It's sort of a table with like high-top stool-type chairs around.
So they're actually, so it's over 3 feet, so that's over what, you said the shrubs are only at 3 feet, so it's higher than the shrubs?
They're not.
No, you do not see them. And I even walked over to the bulkhead, stood on the bulkhead, and you can see over the shrubs, you can see the back of the building, but you do not see this area.
And to clear that up, you did indicate, so you mentioned that they might be about 3 feet high, but they're planted at above grade height already, right?
Correct.
They are, and I'm estimating 3 feet. I didn't measure them.
Right.
They could be 4.
But I think that's how they get it. We don't see them because it's above grade already and then planted at that height.
Can you do a clarification on, you're requesting a variance for accessory use. Can you explain, because right now you have, it can't be above 25% and you're at 43. Can you explain to me how much more this is added on with what you have now? And, I mean, 25 is the number and you're at 43, which is almost double.
Yeah, I believe the existing was around 42%.
So this adds about 1.5%.
Yeah, it's adding 1 to 1.5% to that 42%, or approximately 42%, to bring it up to 43.1.
And the 42 is made up of all other accessory uses, aside from the hotel, correct?
It is, yeah, yes. If I, just strictly exclude the hotel rooms, if I include the outdoor pool, this proposed seating area, the outdoor swimming pool, the indoor swimming pool, there are banquet rooms that are above, like an under-building parking area. There are banquet rooms on the 5th floor. There are, sort of breakout meeting-type rooms that are attached to the hotel lobby. There's Hemingway's Restaurant. When I add all of the square footage of all those uses together, even without the seating area, we greatly exceeded 25 before this application was even presented to the board.
Yeah. Now, I noticed that you were asking for a waiver from, what is it?
We asked for.
Stormwater drainage, is that right? Because I know it floods a lot in that area when it rains. And here you are adding on something that's going to be, covered. More of, I guess we're going up to 85%, right, for lot coverage?
Correct.
Right, we're going from 83.8 to
Right,
85.
which obviously, if you ask me, there's already an issue because of the flooding. So I didn't know how you're going to mitigate the flooding since you're increasing it.
Sheet flows along existing paths towards existing structures that manage stormwater on site.
You're doing what again?
Maintaining existing, sheet flow, so we're going to just slope paved surfaces along existing drainage paths to where stormwater already drains now on site.
Didn't Mr. Blanton say that there was stormwater or drainage installed when this was constructed? No?
No.
I'm sorry, I misheard you then.
No, and also keep in mind that the flooding has been mitigated since the city, or I'm sorry, the county, I guess, did all the construction on Beach Avenue with the new outfall lines, et cetera. I have not seen any since that construction had been completed.
Yeah, we'll have some drain through the pavers, although we can't take credit for it because it's a commercial district and a commercial use.
I think, so I didn't recommend it initially, and let me just back up. So my May 20th, 2024 memo is the latest one that you have. Since then, Mr. Blackman submitted plans, and they have a latest revision date of 9/5/2024. I think that's what everyone has in front of them. And I commend you because I love the fact that you bubble your revisions. It makes it very easy to see what you changed. And I just want to make sure, the one thing that I did not have in my report, in my May report, is the seat count, because I asked them to provide a seating diagram to show how many seats are proposed out there. Can you put that on the record, how many seats they're going to be out there, so that we have that?
Is it okay if I count? Because I don't
think
remember
I
off.
think there's 56. I counted, but I want you prepared to plan. I would like you to tell us.
56.
Okay, that's what my count came up. So I believe that these revised plans show the seating arrangement, the number of seats that are depicted, as well as the replacement of that AstroTurf with pavers that the HPC recommended or required.
Correct.
Are they the only two changes between the iterations of plans?
That's correct.
Okay, so I just want the board to know that I didn't review this latest set. Knowing that they're going to be replacing the AstroTurf and constructing the pavers, I would like them to provide some type of stormwater system that collects and retains some of the stormwater runoff from that site. Especially, we have a site that's proposed at 10% over the maximum. Obviously, you're more of a stormwater generator than most of your neighbors, so whatever we can do to mitigate that, you know.
That's acceptable.
You know, you're going to be reconstructing, excuse me, you're going to be reconstructing, and so I think we can come up with some kind of a acceptable system that mitigates some of that stormwater runoff.
Yes.
Greg, can you just clarify for me, because this always confuses me? The 56 seats they're adding are not part of your parking calculations, and that's because they are outdoor seats not tied to a bar restaurant? Is that
Right, so this is what we get into the dialogue whenever we talk about the accessory uses with these hotel uses. They use the language that they're going to be restricted for hotel guests only. And when we have that situation, applicants make the connection that those guests are already being parked because of their room count. They're not generating off-site trips to this facility. They're not requiring additional parking for that facility, so therefore the seats typically are not counted toward that. But that's a decision the board can weigh. You know, is it appropriate to count them? Do you think that they're going to generate parking? That's in your analysis of weighing. Typically, historically, and for both the planning and zoning board, you know, and then we worry about enforcement. How do we enforce that they're only being used by hotel?
Well, that's sort of why I was pressing them, and I think they agreed.
We
that
did.
they're gonna-
Yeah.
We'll put a gate in place.
Right, so they're making some amendments to the plan that eliminate those nearest accesses to Beach Avenue. I think I heard the words, you can only enter this seating area through the pool area. Is that correct? Did I hear
Yes,
that?
it is.
Okay. So those are some of the things that lead me to believe that it may not be appropriate to include those seats into the parking count.
And the other thing that we did add and made part of the record, which is, again, is we're also not going to have any waiter or waitress service in the area. So even if somebody were to somehow bypass security and get in there, there's not somebody coming to the table to wait on them. So I don't see how it would generate a trip in that capacity or sense either.
Can I ask you a question? Does the Grand do they rent out the pools?
No, we do not.
Okay, so you don't rent them out pools for like parties or anything?
Absolutely not. We barely have enough room for the guests. That's why we're trying to utilize this space. You know, we have thousands of people at the hotel and limited space at the outdoor pool where everybody wants to be. So that's why we saw this opportunity to push the tables out front and gain more space for the guests. It's simply impossible. We would get hung if we had outdoor or people from the outside coming in, taking the space of the guests, paying hundreds or thousands of dollars per night. So absolutely not.
Okay. So inside or outside, the pool's not rented out?
That's correct.
Okay.
Jerry, a couple of other things that were asked for and were touched on in the review letter. We did ask for a few waivers, one of which we've now gone over in terms of stormwater and agreed that we'd put a system in place to the satisfaction of the board engineer. We also asked for a waiver from submission of an environmental impact statement and a traffic study. I know that the board engineer supported those waivers, but can you provide justification as to why you think they're appropriate?
I guess just to continue the discussion regarding the traffic study, we didn't view the use that we were proposing as generating more car trips to the facility, in that it's an amenity for the guests only. To borrow the phrase again, Mr. Hurlis, I'm sorry, the guests are already parked. In regards to the environmental impact statement, we are talking about infill development on an existing developed site that does not contain wetlands or wetland buffers or critical habitat or any of those other items that are typically the subject of a full environmental impact statement. We just felt that the provision of a statement to basically say there is no impact was an onerous requirement.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that statement? Is there any New Jersey DEP, CAFRA?
Can you speak to the mic?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Is there any required New Jersey DEP permitting that's required for the improvements?
Not that we're aware of.
Okay.
Anything else you'd like to add, Jerry? At this point?
No, I have no other comments.
That's all we have, Madam Chair.
So you're saying there's no food service out here?
No, so what we've said, right, we will not have any waiter, waitresses out in that area. What Mr. Belanson indicated he would allow, obviously, is if some hotel guest ordered something inside, they could eat it in that area, but he will not have service to that area, any food coming in and out.
There's no one monitoring the fire pits or as a safety hazard or anything?
From a safety hazard, no. The fire pits, if they have their own safety systems. For instance, if the wind were to blow them out, they shut themselves off. They're commercial rated.
They're
not-
gas pits, right?
Yes.
Are you on 24/7?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, that's what I meant, so somebody goes in and turns them off at a certain time?
That's correct.
And I guess because people are taking food out there, you're going to have to need people to go out and clean up after people?
Of course, yes.
And you've indicated you have that area staffed when
Yes.
it's open, right?
Correct.
So it's staffed, but only for cleanup, not for waitress use?
Exactly.
Okay, do you want to go through yours?
Sure. I would like to summarize my May 20th, 2024 review memorandum for this application. As the applicant indicated, this is in the C3 Hotel Motel District. The applicant is seeking site plan, both preliminary and final approval, with a D variance, and that's what gives this board the jurisdiction to review that, as well as associated C variances. So you've heard testimony what they're proposing. They've indicated there are 56 seats that are now proposed. My report on page 2 of 7 indicates that synthetic turf is proposed to surface the lounge. That's because I hadn't had a chance to review the new plan. That should be amended to indicate pavers are proposed to surface the lounge. Okay, with regards to the completeness review, there are checklist requirements for this type of application. Under the general requirements for all applications, the applicant indicated there's no resolutions from any prior planning board or zoning board.
I actually, they were included. There
Were they?
copies. They were exhibit,
Okay.
well, they were an exhibit to my application originally filed. So those resolutions were from 1987, 1988, and 89.
Okay,
But they were, I don't mark them A, B, or D, but they were provided with the time of the
Okay.
original submission.
they probably were. They were not provided in my package, so I did not have an opportunity to review them. Is there anything in there that you believe is?
There,
pertinent
nothing
to
that
the board?
pertains to this
Okay.
area. It was dealing with rooms within the hotel at the time.
Okay. Can you just tell us how many rooms there are?
166.
166, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the application indicates 166 rooms, 41 employees, and 110 bar and restaurant seats. Is that accurate?
It's accurate.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Under the C and D variance checklist requirements, we asked for an updated certified list. Was that provided to the secretary?
It was.
I didn't get a copy of it.
Yes.
Okay. So that has been addressed. And under the site plan checklist, it starts with number 3. So you've heard testimony with regards to waiving the environmental impact statement requirement, which is sub-letter V. We didn't have an issue with that. Under W, a traffic impact report. This is a permitted use in the zone. The hotel, Beach Avenue, is 102-foot wide right-of-way with sufficient width to accommodate traffic from this. I believe a waiver is justified from that. So therefore, we supported the waivers from that. and did recommend deeming this application complete. We talked about the 25% cap on accessory uses for hotel and motel. So on page 3 of 7, the paragraph above the zoning table illustrates the percentages. So it goes through the specific language, and I'll read that into the record. So uses which are incidental and accessory, excuse me, uses which are incidental and accessory to the uses by right and conditional uses, including dining and other service facilities, conference and meeting facilities, and exhibit space in conjunction with hotel and motels, provided such spaces may not occupy the equivalent of more than 25% of the total floor area of the principal use that are permitted. So the applicant has indicated the additional total floor area of the total floor area of the building is 145,523 square foot, and the existing accessory use area is 32,925 square foot. The outdoor pool and sun deck are 21,575 square feet. The new seating area is 1,569 square feet. Those totals exceed 25%, and the applicant indicated the total of that is 43.1%. So based on our ordinance, it's overdeveloped with accessory uses for this type of use. So therefore, any increase that's proposed to accessory uses triggers the D variance. So therefore, that's why they're asking for that use variance. With regards to the specific improvements, the building setback line requirement from Beach Avenue for the accessory lounge is 20 feet. The face or the nearest portion that projects out into the front setback is 16.58 feet, so there's a C variance that's necessary to be granted to permit that. We talked about lot coverage. They're exceeding the 75% permitted in the zone. 83.8% exists, 85.2% is proposed. The new parking spaces encroach into the front yard setback of Beach Avenue, so they have to be granted approval through a C variance. 20 foot is the requirement. The nearest one is at 4 feet, where 14 foot previously existed. And then finally, the ordinance requires us to reconsider the parking for any type site plan improvements such as this. Based on the uses, my calculation indicates a total of 253 spaces are required. There are 166 spaces existing, and they're proposing to increase that number by 2 to 168.
Just 235 spaces.
235, what'd I say?
253.
Oh, I reversed the number, I'm sorry, 235, that is correct, sorry. So 235 required, 166 existing, 168 proposed. And then finally, those parking spaces that are being proposed closest to Beach Avenue encroach into the required 5-foot buffer. So there's a 5-foot buffer width that's required to buffer those spaces where only 4 foot is being proposed. So
Greg, just for my clarification, what accessory use is being expanded?
what accessory use is being expanded?
Like, I understand there's a primary use, I guess in this one happens to be the hotel. Sometimes it's the restaurant, but the
Okay.
primary use is the hotel, right?
Yes.
And then I understand a restaurant is an accessory use. I guess the closest I can come to figuring this out is that they're saying it's part of the pool, and the pool's an accessory use?
I think it's part of the recreation accessory amenities.
Is that an accessory use, though? Like, a hotel has areas where you just kind of sit around, that's part of the hotel. Like, I'm just trying to, I know, like, the classic one is the Peter Shields, right? And that one is theoretically a motel that happens to have a restaurant as an accessory
That was
use.
actually a tourist guest house is the principal use.
Is the principal use.
And the actual restaurant
Is the
square
accessory.
footage exceeds the square footage of the.
That's the odd one.
Yeah,
But that, so when they start putting stuff that expands the restaurant, I get that they're expanding the accessory use. Okay? On this one, though, the thing that I'm trying to figure out is, what is the accessory use that's being expanded? Not expanding the restaurant, not expanding a banquet facility. I think a pool is an accessory
The
use.
pools are a permitted accessory use as
Right.
part of a hotel.
So since they're calling this part of the pool, we're considering that expansion of that accessory use?
That's how I was taking it.
And if it wasn't part of the pool, and just an area to sit around, I don't,
Yeah, yeah.
to me, it's part of the hotel.
If it wasn't part of the pool, it could, I mean, theoretically, they could have come in with a outdoor seating site plan or request for to allow outdoor seating,
And it would actually reduce their ratio.
quite possibly.
Okay, well, I understand it, but I'm not so much thinking of this application. I'm just thinking about these other applications where some things are part of hotels, and they're amenities in a hotel, they're not accessory. They're
Right.
sitting around in a hotel is what you do at a hotel. The lobby is not an accessory.
I think it's the fire pit.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's an accessory use. It's an accessory, it's a structure of some kind, but
Yeah.
I'm just,
The delicate balancing with these type of applications for these hotels is whether they're going to attract patrons from offsite.
that's the key.
That's the key. So that's the real worry, and to make sure that when we approve these, that the conditions are set properly so that we don't have that situation.
Yeah, if this wasn't part of the pool and it was just another seating area for the hotel, I would be instructing the board that I don't think it's an expansion of a non-conforming use. I think it's an expansion of the
Yeah.
permitted use. So,
Under the use standards, the pool is listed as the accessory use.
yeah, and they've presented it as an extension of the pool. In fact, I wrote that testimony down. So that's why I'm okay calling this, requiring that variance. I'm just pointing out to the board that you can expand the hotel, and doesn't require a variance. It actually reduces the nonconformity, because that is the permitted use, not the accessory use. So, does everybody understand what I'm saying?
Does the fact that they're calling it a lounge make any difference? Change any of this?
I don't think so. You know, hotels have lounge areas. Is that?
Well, if they're,
It's a use.
so if they're being used as for bar service or food service,
Yeah, I
then
think
that
we
becomes.
I think we include food service areas and bars as part of an accessory use. But the lobby at the Congress Hall is not an accessory use. The area that you sit out under the awnings is not an accessory use. It's an area where you sit around in the hotel. So guest areas that sit around, and that's a hotel.
Yeah, but they've presented it to us as an accessory use and something that's going to be used in addition when the pool is not open.
Yeah, and if it's not part of the pool, then I'm not sure what. it is.
Well, and I think-
the testimony is that it is an extension of the pool area and the seating area.
And I
So
think-
to me, they're expanding the pool, and that's an accessory use.
And I think in classifying it that way, at least something I think that developed during this meeting, in doing so, we're able to more easily restrict access to third parties because.
That's the critical thing.
Right, and the only way to have done that was, as we indicated, to only provide access through the pool area.
Because if you
And that's what we're
didn't do
doing.
that, then I think we would consider it, at least I would consider it, an extension of the bar restaurant. Because
And I-
everybody who goes and gets a drink is going to go sit out on the
Understood.
front lawn. And that can be anybody, because I bought a drink at Hemingway's and I wasn't staying there. So,
Right.
you know, I know that you can,
Yep.
that's for other than guests. So you've tied it to the pool, that makes an expansion, but it is an important factor in things you guys care about, which is not having the bar spill out onto the front lawn, which is what we don't want.
Any other questions on the variances? Okay, I'm going to roll into the next section, which is our general review comments, and these should be conditions of approval. So we've asked the zoning table to be revised to reflect comments in this review memo. I would ask the number of seats be noted. There should be no more than 56 seats. That's what the board's approving. Item number 2, the seating plan for the lounge should be provided for review. You've done that. So that is no longer necessary. Item number 3, I asked for resolutions of past applications. You indicated that those were provided. I did not have a chance to evaluate those, but I believe that those are in the board's packages. Item 4 deals with the synthetic turf patio. You submitted your application while the city was considering their ban on that synthetic turf. I recommended that you remove that. The Historic Commission also recommended or required that you remove that. That's gone now, but theoretically, you submitted your application before that took place, so you could have kept it had the HBC not.
Right.
When
Required.
when did you submit your application?
Yeah, it was, I don't have the exact date. It was a little while. It took us a little while to get to this point based on revisions to plans.
Yeah.
Okay,
for
because
APC.
when I had saw your plans, I mean, because I looked up the ordinance, it was May 7th.
Yeah. They
It was
submitted
while
it.
it was pending.
Yeah, they submitted it before that, I checked. But it's a good thing that they're removing it. It's, the city doesn't want to see that type of development, so I'm glad to see the applicant has amended their application. Okay, this is our standard condition. You have to comply with ordinance 485, 2022, which is chapter 25, minimum stormwater management and grading requirements. And I've already put on the record that I'm recommending that we do some type of stormwater management system for that pavered area. So that should be a condition of approval. And strike 6 because I'm going to re-review that new stormwater design. 7 is our standard condition that we're going to evaluate the sidewalk in front of the site. Any damaged sidewalk has to be replaced to the satisfaction of the board engineer. Number 8 is our standard condition that you have to furnish the required performance guarantee and inspection escrow. And 9 is tied also to that, in that the certificate of occupancy is tied to an acceptance of those improvements. The applicant should comply with the recommendations of the requirements of the Cape May Fire Department, Police Department, Public Works Department, Environmental Commission, Shade Tree Commission. We've had a little bit of discussion with regards to that. They've indicated that they're going to work with the Shade Tree Commission to
Yeah, to come up with a plan that's acceptable to them.
I would also recommend that those areas in which you can mitigate impervious places on the surround, and they weren't identified, but.
Yeah. If necessary, I do have a photograph of at least the one that we're proposing. I don't know if you want that as part of the record at this point, but I can provide it.
I want to know what to write down. I can't just write "work with the Shade Commission." I mean, I gotta write something, I gotta write something a little more solid than that. So usually when we have these situations, we kind of leave it to Craig's satisfaction. Is kind of what we do, is we trust Craig to review it. So are we going to see that they're going to minimize the lot coverage violation with rules?
So I don't want to dictate to the board whether they feel that the buffering in front of this is acceptable. Because it's a recommendation essentially for shade trees and evergreen trees to be placed in, and I'm assuming that they're talking about in the area between Beach Avenue and where this is proposed. If the board feels that their buffering is adequate, then I don't know that they need to go back to Shade Tree. They're an advisory committee to us, but if they think that there needs to be more buffering along there, then I think that we can require additional buffering, and then we would have them submit that additional buffering to see if they can get approval from the Shade Tree Commission.
Because we would have to vote to overrule what the Shade Tree's saying right now.
They're an advisory committee.
Right, but we would have to say, I mean,
Yeah,
we
and
would have to
we've
say
done
we
that.
don't agree with, I know we have, and I'm just
have.
saying, but we haven't really talked about this tonight, about what
Right.
that if we were going to go against what they're saying.
Well, do we want to
It
just talk about it now?
We're not overruling them. They really are the picture of clarity. I mean, it says,
It's a recommendation.
it is recommended that a few deciduous shade trees or pine trees be planted in this location.
Right.
I thought it meant kind of like, you have like palm trees in the middle of the seating area. I thought they wanted a couple of trees spread throughout this area, which wouldn't look terrible. But I don't even know what that means. I don't want them to get the impression you're overruling them. I'm not sure what they ruled.
Yeah.
When they recommended approval, just with, right, it's a recommendation for approval, not for denial as
Well,
well.
it's conditions. but
I understand, and that's what, we want to meet them. That's why we want to clear that up with them.
Why don't we make the condition that the applicant and Craig, and we're going to give them preliminary and final, subject to the condition that the applicant, Craig, and the Shade Tree Commission agree upon a plan. If they can't agree upon a plan, then they got to come back to us for that aspect of their final. So we're kind of giving them a chance to satisfy the Shade Tree, Craig, and the applicant, and let them kind of work out their tree issue. And if they can't, then they got to come back to us for us to decide.
Right,
an
because
amended
I don't like to be saying that they want a view when we were trying to block, the whole idea, I know council had put in that ordinance, that if anybody has a pool, they have to have that 5 feet buffer to hide the pools, right? That was when they put in. So I'm not saying that's what this is for, but the whole idea of these trees might be to buffer the area from the public.
Right. And to be honest with you, pools are not really intended, pools and patios connected are not really intended to be in the front yard setbacks. So the buffering, and that's why I'm looking to the board. When I drive down Beach Avenue and I look there, I really can't see that area. That tall grass screens it well. Is that appropriate? Do you think, if the board thinks that's appropriate, I don't want to steer the board if they don't think that's appropriate, and if they think there's more buffering that's appropriate, then please let us know when we consider those front yard setbacks.
But I guess the other thing too is if that shade tree's position, we're going to have to abide by it, so we're coming back here based on the language you're going to place in your resolution anyway. So I don't think you're overruling them in any sense if we think you're not having to obtain their permission for what we're looking to do.
And if they're recommended putting in right in front of their street sign, or their advertising sign for the, I'm going to say no. It's not appropriate.
I don't think it was for buffering. A few deciduous shade trees
In the area.
is not going to buffer this giant pool from Beach Avenue.
Yeah.
I think they wanted some decorative trees strewn throughout this lounge area so it looked more,
Mixes in a bit.
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I don't,
It's
That's
left
not how you
up,
buffer.
it's left open for interpretation.
We
but-
have to have them explain more when they write this stuff down.
well, when they're making a condition, it would be helpful to do that. I agree with that.
But we absolutely, unequivocally, will go to them and work this out
But we're
to
giving them
their
another bite at the
satisfaction.
apple, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, Rich has to write it into the resolution. That's why we're having this discussion.
Okay, well, I'm going to say preliminary, I don't even know if you're going to get approved, so I'm not taking that for
understand.
granted.
Right.
I don't vote. I'm just saying, he's going to say preliminary and final site plan approval is granted, subject to the condition that the applicant, Craig, and the Shade Tree Commission must agree upon the plantings in the front, and if they agree, fine. If they don't, then you need to come back here for that aspect of your final.
Understood.
And then the board will decide what's going to be installed or not, okay?
That's agreed.
All right. Wish I included that.
Okay, so we talked about Shade Tree Commission, Fire Department recommended approval with no conditions, Public Works Department recommended approval with no conditions. So I think I touched upon all of those reports. These are standard conditions that we affix to all site plan approvals. Approval should be conditioned on all other state, county, local approvals. This project is located in the historic district. HPC approval is required, and obviously you've been going through that, but we will like evidence of final approval. And then Beach Avenue is a county right-of-way. Cape May County Planning Department could be required. They probably will waive this, but we want to see evidence that they at least considered it. 14 is you're required to comply with any and all applicable affordable housing requirements. And then finally, should the board grant approval, they're required to revise the plans to meet the conditions that the board sets and submit the requisite number of sets to me for review and approval.
All of those are acceptable.
Happy to answer any questions the board has.
I don't have a question for you. I have one more question. You have 56 seats, so is that the maximum number of people you would allow on this patio area? So I'm getting
Yes.
that. You have weddings, a lot of weddings that you host, so, you would cap that at 56 still?
Well, that area would not be utilized for weddings. We have our sun decks for wedding ceremonies, and then, of course, the ballrooms for the
So
receptions.
I guess it would only come into play if they're all staying there. But in the event that a whole wedding party were staying there, would you cap it at 56 people per time in that area?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, at this time, we can open it up to anyone within 200 feet of the property that wishes to speak. If so, come up to the podium, turn on the microphone.
Okay, so I'm going to have to, for everyone, if anyone's going to speak, you have to say your first name, your last name, spell your last name, and give your address, and then I'm going to swear you in, okay?
My name is Wayne Kaiser. It's spelled Keyser. I own the property at 1027 New Jersey Avenue, directly behind the Grand, along with my wife, who owns 1029 New Jersey Avenue. So we look at the back wall of the hotel.
Okay, sir, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank you for taking comments this evening on this. I understand the desire to improve the hotel facilities. We have been part-time residents of Cape May since 1997, and we've seen many nice improvements at the Grand. In fact, we're customers of the Grand. We eat in the restaurant frequently. I've used their meeting rooms, and as of last year, we hosted a wedding there for my son. And the wedding planner that's employed by the Grand did a wonderful job. So this is not hostility towards the Grand in any way. But I do want to express some distress and discouragement, concern over the fact that this work was done without approvals, without public notice, and without the opportunity for public comment. And now they're asking for, okay, it's done, can we use it? That kind of rubs me a little the wrong way. The site is already an extremely high-stress site. There are always tour buses coming and going and parking in the parking lot across from my house. When I sit on my front porch, I look at a brick wall. I hear trash trucks, dumpsters, air conditioners, and in the past, unburned gas from their dryer units. I chose the house. I knew what I was doing, but we are the buffer zone for the residential community, and that is a very high-stress site. There is a tremendous amount of traffic. There is absolutely inadequate parking. The employees from the Grand park along the north side of New Jersey Avenue. So often, we can't even find a parking spot on the street for our own guests. I'm also concerned about noise. If when I sit on my front porch in the evening, I would like to hear the ocean, but I don't. If I don't hear air conditioners, I'm hearing music and party and laughter from as far away as Madison and Beach, from Harry's. Another 50 people in front of the Grand is only going to add to that. So when you tell me that you want to increase the lot coverage even more, even by a small percentage, it concerns me that there's going to be increased flooding on the New Jersey side. It wasn't too long ago, just a couple of years ago, when there was several feet of water at the corner of Beach, and now you want to cover even more ground. And there is no green on the back side of the hotel, none. Forgive me, but it raises concerns. And this is me just trying to be a good neighbor. I love your business. I've spent literally over $50,000 in the last 12 months at your facility. But the local government, the boards, and the businesses have a high disregard for the residents of this community. And I think something needs to be said. It's very discouraging. These are my life's assets, these two homes. These are my children's inheritance. There needs to be greater protection for the buffer zones and for the residents that are close to commercial districts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Fred Latchet, L-A-C-H-A-T. I reside 2 houses away from Mr. Kaiser at 1033 New Jersey Avenue. View of the hour, I don't want to take up any more of your time, but
Swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and the truth, so help you God.
I do. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I want to second everything that Mr. Kaiser said to you. These concerns are real and genuine and have been long existing on New Jersey Avenue. I was interested to hear some of the numbers today. I knew there was inadequate parking for the hotel. I'm astonished to hear by how much. And it's a real problem that whatever your decisions are, you really must think about that. And we're taking the representations by the applicant here today that they will enforce this, that there will be no increased parking. Let's hope that turns out to be true. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else within 200 feet? Anyone beyond 200 feet that wishes to speak?
Julius Rausch, R-A-U-C-H, 1010 New York Avenue. I live 2 blocks away.
Sir, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and the truth?
I do. There are several issues which I think are relevant that needs to be considered. I may ask a couple of questions. Does the pool area provide food and beverage currently?
Not from the hotel, no.
So that people have to bring that from either their own private, or they've got to go out and
Correct.
bring it in?
You should see the coolers they bring.
Do you plan to have any music or entertainment in this area?
None, not more than we already have. We usually have Billy Bittman, steel drum player, in the pool area. He may play at the pool, or he, if we're allowed to utilize the area in question, he may play out there, but it's not as if this is going to be an area for bands or rowdy parties or anything like that. That's simply not the case.
Do you plan to permit tents installed in this area?
No.
What do you close your pool down at any given hour in the evening?
Usually at dusk.
Will you do the same thing for this given area?
We can, yes.
Pardon me?
We can, yes.
Well, will you follow the trend of the pool and close it down for occupancy?
We hadn't considered that.
I think that's a subject that needs to be
We're happy to
discussed.
respond, and we can do a Q&A.
I think they have to now that the pool access is through the pool.
If we're going to do it that, right.
I mean, the seating area is through the pool area now.
And I'm happy to reply, but Q&A back and forth isn't productive all that much
Well,
usually.
he's allowed to do that.
He is?
He can cross-examine your witnesses as well.
I'm not, okay, all right.
In fact, he's not even doing it in a leading way, he's doing it in a non-leading way, but he could actually ask him cross-examination questions if he wanted to.
Is there going to be a time that this area will be closed?
It will close with the pool.
You say it's only for hotel guests.
Correct.
When the hotel has a private party or a party that is developed by the guests, can I assume that those individuals are permitted to use this area?
If they're hotel guests, then yes.
But a hotel guest is not one that necessarily occupies a room overnight.
That would be accurate, yes.
I'm a bit concerned, they say there's only going to be no parking required for 56 seats. When you look at the diagram that's been given, it's obvious that there's seven tables, and you've got 2 large areas with a gas pit. That can accommodate a lot of people. Believing that it's not going to require additional parking, I don't think can be considered an accurate statement. The fire pit area, will you be using that to cook any food?
No.
My concern is parking. I don't live that close to this building, but we all experience a tremendous pressure on the first 4 blocks coming back from the beach with parking. It's increasing every year. We've seen a marked change in the vision and the development of Cape May's resort area. We're now a 12-month community, and it's increasing. The density is increasing. The numbers of people that are increasing. I believe that the requests that are being asked for here are in excess of what needs or what serves the community. It's far in excess of what is reasonable. I do not believe that there should be a leniency just for the matter of the business. It should be considered for the community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops. Hi there. I'm Elizabeth Hyde, 1007 New Jersey Avenue,
Hold on, you have to spell your last name for me.
HYDE.
And say your address again?
1007 New Jersey Avenue. I'm a few doors down from Mr. Kaiser.
Okay, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, all truth, nothing but
I
the truth?
do. I do. Yeah, I am just here to echo a lot of the points that Mr. Kaiser made. And, you know, having lived in this community since I was 1007 New Jersey Avenue since I was in 7th grade, and I'm 66 years old, so even though I don't live here full-time now, I do intend to retire in a few years, so we're back and forth a lot, and there's been a lot of changes in terms of the pressure from the entire hotels, the Montreal, the Icona, the Ocean Club, and the Grand, and the Icona. And I would dare say that the condition of the hotels is a lot better, but with that has come a lot more activities. I mean, your business is so successful. I would agree with also Mr. Kaiser's comments. It's a great facility, and you're a good neighbor for the most part. But you bought a facility that has, you know, so few parking. It's unconforming parking. It's back out parking, which is very dangerous. You know, your success in the Hemingways and all the hotels has created, you know, more and more pressure on the parking side along New Jersey Avenue, down Philadelphia Avenue, on New York, and so on and so forth, Madison. Fortunately, I have off-street parking. I'm one of the few. Most of my neighbors don't have as much parking as I do, and it's a real challenge. I don't really see this project as increasing demand on parking. I do think that if it's just available to the people in the hotel, you're not going to add it. That's not a really big concern. And I also think for a fire pit, you're not going to have people coming out of Hemingway's and wander over there with a drink because it's illegal to leave the building with a drink, as I understand the rules. So I don't think that's a particular concern. But I must admit, I would certainly prefer to see more parking in that area. And I don't know what the precedent is in terms of, you know, prior uses and acceptance of that area. I do wonder with the professionals involved with when you went about putting into this project, if anybody advised you that you might need to come to the boards and get public input for this particular project. And I just think that generally we're stuck with a lot of precedent. I don't think that our rights and our properties are given the respect that they should. I mean, we're dealing with a zone which is very popular, but the lighting, the noise, the traffic, the parking, you know, every time anybody adds an amenity, it puts a lot of pressure on us and doesn't add value to our properties. And I know that, you know, we've been told in the past, like the Lemaire, for example, they were saying that they would not let anybody but the people staying in the hotel use their spa, and yet the next day it was advertised on their website as an amenity for the outside public. So there's a lot of distrust that I think we have, generally on what happens in the future. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Martin Van Walsum, V-A-N, W-A-L-S-U-M, 329 Congress Street. Can you swear me in?
Yes, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. I was a little confused by some of the parts of the testimony. I know it's been a long evening, so I was hoping maybe you could clarify. I wasn't really sure, the comment that you have thousands of guests, did that mean in the season or on any given day?
Well, certainly in season would be more than off-season.
No, I'm saying, do you have thousands of guests per day?
Well, we have 160-some guest rooms. If there's maybe thousands is...
Is it an approximation, or was it also just mentioned? It wasn't an exact figure, was it?
No, not at all.
But thousands would mean more than 10 people per room.
No, I apologize for overestimating our popularity.
Oh, well, it was incongruous because I couldn't understand how you could have thousands of guests with 166 guest rooms.
Right.
You also have, your guests use the beach, you provide space on the beach for your guests?
Yes.
And you have a beach concession agreement with the city that allows that?
Yes.
Do you serve food to those guests that are on the beach from the Hemingways?
Yes.
But you won't serve food to the guests at the pool?
That's correct.
Okay. So where is the food going to come from that you've spoken of, that the food and the drinks that the people in this area, where will that come from?
Well, again, if they have the food on their own, we have, half of the rooms are efficiencies. So people bring their own food in. Also, if people take food out from Hemingway's or from other restaurants in the area, that's where they would be having their meals. The beach is different because it is so far away from the hotel that nobody is going to walk, or most nobody is going to walk from the beach to Hemingway's for their lunch. So that's why we find it appropriate for the beach service.
A hotel guest that's utilizing this seating area could stand in front of Hemingway's and wait for a person to come out with a bag of food, though, and take out food from Hemingway's and bring it into this pool area?
Yes.
Okay. So while there's no wait service being provided, there will be food service being provided to this area?
In an indirect way, I suppose.
When you say hotel guests and these 1,000, roughly, people that are on your property on any given day, if I'm a guest of a guest, am I allowed to use this pool area?
No.
Okay, so I'm having, I'm visiting a friend that's staying in the hotel, but I'm not allowed to use the pool, I'm not allowed to use this area.
You would have to be a registered guest of the hotel to obtain a wristband to gain access to the pool area.
Okay. And in the evenings, when, I think that you said that this was going to be lit, this area?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the same lighting as what's on the rest of the hotel.
But there's no lighting at the pool?
Yes, there is.
Okay. So the pool closes at dusk, and you're talking about using this area only when the pool is open? Is that the commitment at this
Correct.
stage? Why would you need lighting in the fire pits?
Bob, don't answer this. I mean, he just testified that it's going to close when the pool closes. Why are we now entertaining questions about lights after the time it's closed? It closes at dusk.
Oh,
Question would have been answered by now, I think.
Well, and
I'm trying to clarify,
I'm trying to
clarify the testimony of
Trying to twist it.
why would a fire pit be needed if it's closing at dusk? The reason that I'm going here is that I believe that these 56 seats and 7 tables are going to increase the intensity of use of the property. The pool area up until a half an hour ago was closing, but this was going to be open. I don't understand how we could restrict the use of this area if hotel guests want to use it after dusk Policing it, I think, would be very difficult. You'd wind up with a lot of bad feelings with your guests who see this very inviting, lit area with fire with fire pits, and you're being told you're not allowed to use it. So I kind of agree that sometimes commitments get made, but then those commitments aren't necessarily enforceable. An increase in intensity then increases the parking. I understand the calculations that have been done. I understand that these technically don't require that they be included in the count for parking. But with the increase of intensity, we're going to see an increase in the need for parking in the area, which is already a significant issue. We're being asked to give credit for the 2 parking spaces that you're providing, but you're putting those parking spaces in the setback. So I don't understand why we should be pleased that you need another variance for the setback to provide 2 additional parking spaces. I'd rather see some types of arrangements being made to provide more parking in general for a property that is already lacking a significant number of parking spots. The final point that I would like to make is, as a resident of Cape May, I'm searching for the right word. When you already exceed the parameters that the city has set for density and for other uses, and you exceed that further, that's a big deal. And it was almost handled in a way that was, it's not really that big a deal. It's only another 1.5%. We see this a lot in the city of Cape May, where businesses, homeowners continue to come to zoning and say, well, we already have a variance. We're asking you to extend that variance even further and further and further. It's important to the residents of the city of Cape May that this city stay the way that it is. And that means that we don't want 85% lot coverage. That's starting to look like some of the other short towns that we're trying to not resemble. So I would ask that we please take that seriously. I would also say that we have 2 applications, obviously the other application had nothing to do with you, that went ahead and did the work without having permission. I would like to think that a good corporate citizen would think to ask for permission before they proceed, rather than just assume it's okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Is that a no? She can't.
No, you get 1 shot,
Okay.
unless there's additional testimony, but there wasn't. So.
You don't think with them adding?
Well, I mean, it's the chair's discretion. I shouldn't say it. Madam Chair, you can let her talk if you want to.
Very briefly.
You continue on the road.
Yes, I understand that. My only comment is that if you decide to proceed to allow this to move forward, I think that would be very restrictive on the hotel not to allow it to be open after the pool is shut down, because that's the nicest time to sit out, you know, with the fire pit is after dusk. So it just seems kind of funny to cut it off at that point.
So we're closed to the public.
I guess, can I respond to a few things that get raised, I guess? Is that possible?
Get to close, absolutely.
So, just to add, there's a lot of discussion about people's feelings about the restriction at closing at dusk and only allowing hotel guests, and fears that we are not going to abide by that after we leave here tonight if this application's approved. And I know you hear it often, but there's a very simple way to enforce those conditions if they're not being enforced, and that's for anyone to call code enforcement and say, get out there and cite them. The owner is here tonight. He's making these representations. He put a lot of energy and effort into this project. He's not going to step aside from the requirements and conditions that you put in place tonight. He's here to testify to that effect. The discussion related to any intensity in use, to me, is just, and I don't want to sound glib, but it's somewhat perplexing. If anyone thinks that you're going to have additional vehicular traffic or people coming to Mr. Belanson's property solely because of the fact that he added a small outdoor seating area, that can only be utilized by hotel guests. I think it's really far-fetched. On top of that, I know it's not, we're not coming into compliance by any stretch of the imagination through this application, but we, in fact, are making parking better. If this were not to be approved tonight, you're still left with the 166 spaces that are there now. We're providing you with 2 more, a minimal addition, but this is a lot that we've talked about in excess tonight as being pretty much maxed out. There's nowhere else to add parking. If we could, I think Mr. Belanson would. I think it would behoove him not to. We physically cannot do it. What we're giving here is all that we can give at this point. And just in addition to that, I know there was concerns about music in the pool area. Mr. Belanson did testify that there is some that occurs now, and the anticipation is that will continue into the future. I assume in order to do that now, you have to abide by the noise ordinances of the city, correct?
Absolutely.
And would you continue to do that if approved this evening?
Of course.
Outside of that, I think we've addressed all of the other issues throughout our presentation. I do think Mr. Belanson provided sufficient testimony as to why it was that this was put in place before approvals were received, and the board can weigh his testimony to that effect, but it was at length. He laid that out earlier. So on top, and in addition to that, if there's any questions, we're happy to answer them, but I think that concludes our presentation.
Any other comments, questions?
All right, so this is an application for a use variance. There's an existing nonconformity, and it's being expanded by the increase in the accessory use of the pool by creating an additional seating area. Then that require 5 out of 7 votes to be approved. The applicant is presented as a whole, although if it's denied, I would like to take a vote on the parking spaces separately. Because
I don't know that that makes sense to weigh that separately. I feel like this is all one project.
I know, but if you
Either-
lose, do you want to really have to tear out 2 parking spaces? Okay, I mean, I'll do it, we'll play it by ear.
Okay.
I mean, effectively, if we vote on everything and you lose, if you vote on everything and you lose,
Yeah.
you got to tear out the parking spaces. So I'm just
Right.
trying to give you some, we'll see what happens after. Nobody run away. If the vote's no, don't scramble out of the room, okay? We have some thinking to do. That's only if you vote no. I'm not telling you to vote no. I'm not telling you how to vote. You vote how you vote. I just wanted to talk about that because we're going to vote on it as a whole, but I just want to pause after that. Okay, but the project as a whole requires 5 out of 7 to be approved. Incidentally, the separate parking spaces only require a majority, just to put that in your mind. But the applicant has made a lot of concessions tonight, and I want to go through them with you, because they were intended to and do in some ways mitigate some of the concerns of the board, so I want to make sure you understand them and that they're fully committed to them. One hasn't been discussed in a while, but I think it's very important. They are going to install stormwater mitigation for the area in question. Mr. Hurlis requested them to do so, and they are going to do that. So the area that's being added, that adds to the lot coverage, they are providing flood mitigation for that area. They are also agreeing that the pool and the lounge will be open together and closed together, typically at dusk. They're not serving food in that area. They're not serving drinks in that area. Food, and guests may bring food and drinks into the area just as they do the pool, because there's an extension of the pool, but they're not doing service in that area. They're also closing the access way from the parking lot, or if for some reason that the code requires that access be there, it'll be limited to guests only by some electronic means or something like that. But this is for guests only, and they're committed to that. It's also only 56 people. So even though the area has 56 seats and it could possibly hold other people standing around or sitting around, it's limited to 56 people, and they will enforce that. Then there's the other conditions outlined by the board engineer, 1 through 15. And also, we have the condition that and the way I typed it, I'll read you what I wrote. If the applicant is granted preliminary and final site plan approval, the final is conditioned upon the Shade Tree Commission, Craig Hurlis, and the applicant agreeing on the landscaping plan, and if they cannot agree, the applicant must come to the board for final site plan approval.
Understood.
Okay, that's what that's going to say. I think I've outlined the conditions, at least the most important ones. So the motion I
Should it read amended final site plan approval?
no, because you just don't have it. I mean, you have to come back for
Oh,
final.
I thought we were voting on final tonight.
You are, but
Okay,
that
conditioned
final is
upon that.
conditioned on that. And if
Understood.
you don't come to agreement, you got to come back for the final.
Yep, understood.
Although I will say that if you come back for the final, that would be limited to the issue of the landscaping.
Okay,
But it can be anything the board thinks is appropriate.
makes sense.
Okay, so the motion I recommend being made, does anyone need me to read the variance standards? You've all read the engineer's report, so you're aware of the standards. And this is an expansion of a non-conforming use, so it doesn't need to be particular site suitability, but it needs to be able to accommodate the expansion that they're requesting, which they've attempted to mitigate that with the things that we've talked about. So the motion to be made is a motion, we always do it in the affirmative. That doesn't mean you have to vote yes, it's up to you, but we always say the affirmative, that way yes and no aren't confusing. So the motion I recommend being made is a motion to grant the variances 1 through 6 on page 4 of the engineer's report, subject to the conditions that I just outlined on the record, as well as those contained in the engineer's report. And there's a couple of waivers to it that I didn't mention, but I think it's V and W in the engineer's report. That's the motion I recommend being made, but how you vote is up to you. And it requires 5 out of 7 in the affirmative.
Would somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Walsh, seconded by Ms. Sheehan.
Roll call, Mr. Lewin,
No.
Ms. Sheehan,
I'm going to say no, I'm going to say the reasons why. At some point, you have to say no, and there's reasons why parameters are set by the city, and it's for the betterment of the community. The accessory use parameter is 25%. They're going to be over 43%, or around 43%. The lot coverage is going to be at 85%, and the parameter is 75%. So I just think for the betterment of the community, at some point, you have to stay within those parameters for the enjoyment of the neighbors in that area.
Mr. Walsh,
No. I agree with what Ms. Sheen said. There's rules in place to control development of these properties. Lot coverage, accessory use, we're exceeding both of them. Also, something we didn't really speak about is like light, air, and open space. This one picture, I'm sitting here looking at this, it would be a much nicer visual if these tables and chairs weren't there. If you were a hotel guest looking out to the ocean, not looking at a fire pit, tables and chairs, just for your own guests, I think I would rather go and see the water rather than more chairs in front of me.
Mr. Zexer,
No, and I'm going to say no because I'll agree with everything that was just said. That's exactly the same thing I would have said. I'm also a little bothered by the fact that this was done 2 years ago, yet it was bought in 97, 98, and there was nothing in the stones that were there. We didn't hear anything about that. That never.
That wasn't his testimony, that the stones were there in 97. That is blatantly against exactly what he said on the record. But
I will tell you that my recollection of the testimony is that it was bought in 97.
it was
and then
AstroTurf
It was a hot mess, AstroTurf.
with chairs
They
and
removed
tables.
that and put stones in. That's what he just said.
That's what I was told.
No, that's not what he said. He said when he bought it in 97, there was red stone there. That's
No.
not what was
No,
there.
No.
Water-
Okay.
Bought in
You may have a
97.
different understanding.
Bought in 97.
I
In
do.
98.
The testimony that I typed down, okay, which I do it contemporaneous. I'm not saying it's a critical thing, but I said the area was previously AstroTurf, but in 1998, they tore it out and put in red stone. That's what I wrote down as it was said.
That is what he said.
And I did the math in my head. 25 years went by between the time that was torn down, stones were put in. I walk past this property every day on a walk. And I watched this construction take place a couple of years ago and thought, okay, but we never heard about it. It just struck me as curious. The bigger issue for me is the adverse impact to the neighborhood and the adverse impact to the community.
Mr. Bodnar?
I vote no. The proposals for a lounge area, 56 seats, 1,569 square feet. That's no small change for the property. Buffer is not adequate for the intense use of activity and sound for the area and the neighbors. The property is built out regarding lot coverage, and the property is built out for intensity of use.
Mr. Venuto?
I'll vote no also, and along with what everyone else has said, I really find it to be extremely difficult to police this bit of the property like you would need to keep it with just 56 people there consistently.
Ms. Werner?
I vote no also for all the reasons given, and I also agree that it's going to be very difficult to police going forward.
Okay, that's 7 no's. Hold on, I promise you wouldn't run. Okay, I want to give you the
I think
opportunity.
it makes sense to even consider it,
Hold
but
on. Everybody just breathe.
I'll pray.
You have 2 more parking spaces.
In the buffer zone, which is obviously a
Well, these
concern according to the
Wait,
deliberations of the
hold on,
board.
wait, I know, just pull yourself away from the moment. Just think. You want us to vote on the parking spaces? Because if we don't, you have to tear them out. And that, I'm not taking a position either way. I'm just saying, right now, they are, to my understanding, parking spaces that were installed without approval. So if, I don't want you to have to tear them out if you really don't want to. So I'm going to give you a vote on that. That's a majority vote. That's 4 out of 7. So you might get that, and I just want to give you that opportunity. But if, I understand the school thought too, that give you a little spite and say, well, you didn't give us this, so we're not gonna give you the 2 parking spaces we gave you, but I'm letting you make that business decision if you want the parking spaces, and then let the board vote on them. They may vote no, but I don't want to foreclose the vote. So you want to chat with your client and whisper to each other and decide?
No, we'll take the 2 parking spaces if so desired.
So I'm going to invite a motion on a separate variance, and how you vote is up to you. I just don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's,
You want me to?
go ahead, Craig, help me out.
So you would be granting a variance for the parking buffer, the parking in the setback, and for the additional lot coverage, and I don't know what that calculation is, to just allow those 2 parking spaces.
It'll be a
Yeah, it's a minimal percent, but there is a little bit you're adding.
What about shade tree with that?
That's part of the lounge area, so.
They didn't say anything about that.
Okay, I was just asking. But, so we weren't just voting, I guess I have a question here, that we voted, usually we vote on all of them, which is how we do it. Now we voted and we said no. Now we're going back and saying, well, now we're going to piecemeal it? I just didn't know how
What
we're
I'm saying is
doing.
2 parking spaces. The testimony tonight was that parking was a major concern, and they're nodding their head out in the audience, okay? So now, if they had just come in and said, we'd like a variance to add 2 parking spaces, what would you say? Yes or no? So you're allowed to, so you voted on the project as a whole and said no. But we've done this, there's plenty of precedent for this. I mean, off the top of my head, we did it for Icona. We voted no, and then because we didn't like the backup parking, and then we voted on the pool separately and gave them the pool. So sometimes, after a no vote, there may be something that makes sense that can be done separately, that doesn't require a 5 out of 7. And you can vote no. I mean, it may still lose. I might have to say yes, but
But I guess my question is, Rich, is that why, we always group all of it together,
we did that.
right? But because it failed, then we're going to take something out and see if it passes?
No, I don't.
I mean,
care.
we almost
Ms.
should have
Sheehan,
taken the
no,
parking out
Anybody
beforehand.
can make any motion they want to. It's your absolute constitutional right. And if there's no motion or it doesn't get a second, then fine. I'm just pointing out the possibilities, that's all.
It is a benefit to the overall neighborhood. You've heard testimony from from the neighbors.
Well, then can we open up public comment for this again? Because you're going back and we're voting on
There's
something
no-
without
There's no
public
new
comment.
testimony, it's just,
I think the testimony we provided was even
Right.
as a benefit in our initial testimony. I don't think we need to add more to it.
Sheen, you're free to vote no.
I'm just asking, are we going to open up for public comment? But
No,
because we're
it's the same
bringing it back on the
application.
table on
It's
this
the-
other thing.
It's the same application, and the public doesn't decide how we do votes. You know, there's a lot of boards, in fact, this board, when I read the old resolutions, votes 6 times, which I think is a horrible error, because I don't understand what happens if you grant them a lot coverage variance, but not the use variance, or the use variance and not the lot coverage. I don't understand that. So sometimes logically, some things have to go together. In this instance, I don't know how you would do the use variance without the lot coverage. If you voted yes on one and no on the other, it would have been insane. But in this instance, sometimes there's one that comes out that you can vote separately. And to me, the parking one is a benefit to the community, a possible benefit to the community, that I don't know why we would just not consider it, but that's up to the board. If there's no motion, I don't care, I don't make motions. I frame them for you, but I can't make it and I can't second it. That's up to you.
Can I put a motion on the table?
Yes.
I'd move that we allow the owner to retain the 2 parking spots that they have already paved and developed.
I second it.
Can I have the motion and the second? Who made them?
Mr. Ledwin, and I will not sure, Mr. Venuto.
Thank you. All right, roll call on the motion. Mr. Ledwin?
Yes.
Ms. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Zexer?
Yes.
Mr. Bodnar?
Yes.
Mr. Venuto?
Yes.
Ms. Werner?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So the first, the variances 1, 2, 3 were rejected, although there's some slight increase in the lot coverage, very small for the parking spaces, and Craig, it was the setbacks, the buffer, and I think the number, although it's increasing. Okay,
Still not conforming, yeah.
okay. All right, I think that's everything we're going to vote. Thank you.
Thank
Great.
you.
You did?
Yes, yes. Okay, we still have to make a motion for payment of bills.
So move.
Second?
Mr. Ledwin, Ms.
Ye-
Sheehan.
Yes.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Ledwin, second by Ms. Sheehan on payment of bills. Mr. Ledwin?
Yes.
Ms. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Zexer?
Yes.
Mr. Bodnar?
Yes.
Mr. Venuto?
Yes.
Ms. Werner?
Yes.
Thank you.
And motion for adjournment?
One quick thing, please.
Okay.
Craig, at a past meeting, you said if we notice a trend in things, I think we're starting to see a lot of applications that are coming into us that are already completed. Maybe it's just, and we've seen a lot of stuff that's completed, and then all of a sudden, it's easier to say I'm sorry than ask permission, or whatever the saying is. That you would take that back, or should take back to planning? Is that something that needs to be discussed? Is it just me that's seeing this, or?
Well, I agree with you, Tim, that we're getting stuff coming to us that, the sense I get in town is, we can do it.
It also puts us in an awkward position. I feel awkward,
Yeah.
like, you know.
And the other thing is, there's still issues out there that we voted on that haven't been executed. And that's very concerning to me.
They should be getting fined and having fines accumulate each day. That's the power that the department has.
Rich, I don't know,
We're not involved in that. We don't do enforcement.
I know, but I'm very concerned about the ethical and the, how we process things. Not us personally, but I just,
That's a
I find it-
committee issue, and I would bring it up with them.
I find
don't
it
even,
a very distressing thing.
when there's an enforcement issue, I'm not even the attorney for that.
I understand that, but it's concerning to me.
Is that something that we, in a group, we take back to planning, or?
I don't know if it goes to planning, or it goes to the mayor, or it goes to the city manager, or who it goes to.
Can you carry that to?
I, as the acting secretary and the deputy city manager,
There, get over here.
I was just waiting to be called on, but I will certainly relay those concerns back to the zoning officer and code enforcement. And obviously, as you see certain things, certainly feel free to send those emails, phone calls, et cetera, into administration or directly to the zoning officer or code enforcement. It's been an ongoing thing that, we've been trying to work with each department to ensure that, they catch them earlier and, make sure that the appropriate actions are done.
I think if we don't enforce it, it's going to continue to get rampant in the community. Because people don't have any respect for the organization.
Sure, absolutely, I agree.
You'll be hearing from us.
See, I saved you a step.
We want to make a motion to adjourn?
So move.